Choi Jae-hyun, this is the guildmaster's order, use a counterspell, Park Tae-young's assistant tells the knight. It's a technique I prefer not to use in public, Jae-hyun says thoughtfully. Are there any special reasons to go too far? The guild leader believes that Cha Shin-hyun is hiding something, according to Yan Sunjiak, but what exactly is unknown. But whatever it is, a sorcerer who can control magic as high as gravity is too dangerous. So, Sunjiak smiles, you have to kill him. And now Choi Jae-young is towering over Shinyang, who, as luck would have it, can't use his magic for 10 seconds. What is it? The hero thinks, looking at the enemy with fear. Just a little more and Jaehyun's huge halberd would come crashing down on him. But this does not happen, the blow flies past, the weapon is stuck in the ground, and the hero bounces back. You look very surprised, Cha Shin-hyung, the knight says with a smile. This is my original skill, counterspell. As you can see, it doesn't allow you to use magic. You are finished. Here's the hero, who, as it seems, really does not know what to do. Without magic, your kind is powerless against me. The spectators in the stands are watching with fear and tension. When it looked like the fight was over, fighter Choi Jae-young used an unknown skill on Cha Shin-hyun, according to a TV commentator. Park Tae-hoon, smiling broadly, tells Young Jun-ho, who is standing next to him, what's going on. Ji-hyo has always been simple and straightforward. He hates guys who use their magic tricks, but I didn't think that he would be able to obtain such a great original skill. Lee Jahi, who is standing nearby, screams in horror. Eyes wide, she tries to telepathically tell Shin-hyun to run out of the arena. This competition doesn't mean anything anymore, just give up, she begs. Under no circumstances should you use your martial arts. Run and give up, thinks the hero, whose situation seems hopeless. And the enemy points a halberd in his direction and calls him by name. Even if you can escape, I won't let you give up, he announces. We're seeing a lot of system messages about Choi Jae-young increasing his attack power. My spear has already accumulated so much energy that it can easily destroy a small building, says the knight. And indeed, one of the tablets says that he has reached the full charge of his weapon. I wonder, he says, if you can withstand this attack without a magic barrier. Ji-hyo puts his foot on the surface of the arena. Die, he screams and rushes at the hero. Why do I have to die? Shin-hyun wonders. He sees the enemy rushing towards him, shrouded in a cloud of purple energy. What the hell is this? The hero tries to understand. He stands in the middle of the arena, and the whole stadium sees the knight rushing at him. Lee Jae looks at this nightmare with his mouth open and eyes wide. What is most surprising is that Park Tae-hoon, who is also here, feels something unkind. Young Jun-ho asks his second-in-command if she's okay, and then asks her to explain what just happened here. Park Tae-hoon holds his head. The cultivation art of heavenly origin martial arts has suddenly started to resonate, he thinks. But there's something wrong with it. The incoming energy seems to be somehow wrong. It's a very powerful and eerie tremor that he's never felt before. Choi Jae-young, who has rushed to attack the enemy, also feels something is wrong. His eyes widen in horror, and a strangled cry comes out of his mouth. What's going on? The knight tries to understand. Is it magic? No, that's not possible. My counterspell is still active. But Ji-hyo can't even move as his body is bound by a thick chain formed from bluish energy. What kind of skill is this? He shouts, and we see that there are actually a lot of chains, and they fix the fighter in the most reliable way. It's not a skill, it's a martial art, the hero tells him. If you want to know what martial arts are, ask Park Tae-young when it's over. Shin-hyun soars into the air and starts teasing the enemy from there. Imagine, I was seriously offered to run away or give up. I get mad when I hear such nonsense. You seem very surprised, the hero continues. This is a situation that only you can see and feel. The energy that is currently binding you is the most advanced swordsman's technique, known as the Mind Sword. This is a power that can only be used after an external skill reaches level 40, and it's called Mind Sword Manifestation. At the same time, the word sword in all previous cases in this world means nothing more than human will. If you master this technique at the highest level, you can kill the enemy and even, damn it, split the heavens and earth just by wishing for it. But, says the hero enthusiastically, holding up his index finger, it would be boring if it ended like this, wouldn't it? Choi Jae-young looks at the hero in horror from behind his visor. I have to pass on a couple of instructions to the students of future generations, Shin-hyun says, and punches the immobilized opponent with all his might. White energy waves propagate away from the point of impact. Choi Jae-hyun is bleeding from the mouth. Shin-hyun smiles. Park Tae-young, you can see this, he telepathically transmits his thought, extending his hand in the direction of the enemy who has lost his weapon. Remember this picture? You were so eager to see it. This is martial arts. Shin-hyun attacks again, this time with a hurricane strike. The target is hit again this time. The energy of the blow penetrates every cell of the knight's body down to the very last bone and muscle. Park Tae-young looks on with horror in his eyes and wide mouth. Commentators are also perplexed about this, what they just saw. Until recently, it seemed, they say, that the fighter Cha Shinyang was stunned by an unknown skill of the enemy, but now Choi Ji-hyung is lying motionless. What kind of energy could Cha Shinyang use? His opponent needs a doctor, the fight is stopped. The hero, smiling broadly, grabs his head with his hand. I feel much better now, he says happily. What a relief to be able to use martial arts after such a long break. An announcement sounds around the stadium. Fighter Choi Jae-hyun is unable to continue the fight. The second match of the big shootout of the Sun Festival is won by Cha Shin-hyun. Park Tae-hoon, as far as we can see, is seething with rage. After the fight, Cha Shin-hyun withdrew from the competition, claiming that he had run out of magic powers. Here is the cover of a print edition with the headline, "Is it possible that the winner of the guild competition at the Festival of the Sun was not dawn or dusk, but unlimited?" In subsequent matches, the Dawn Guild representatives suffered 3 consecutive defeats, and the final score was 3-2 in favor of Twilight. This was the end of the Festival of the Sun. Shin-hyun received the nickname Star Hunter and became a celebrity in an instant. Several messages from social networks. Cha Shin-hyun is a god. I saw him defeat 2 opponents one after the other. Its level must be at least 60. Where did it come from? It seems that the top 4 best hunters should be changed to the top 5. I think he's even stronger than Park Tae-hyung. Even though the Twilight Guild had formally defeated the Dawn Guild, the Twilight Guild itself didn't think so. Kim Cholo stands in front of his boss's office door. "Chief, are you all right?" he asks, looking worried. There is no answer, and the secretary listens to what is happening outside the door. Park Tae-hoon is sitting in a chair with his head down, making strange sounds like a chicken cackling. Then he grabs his forehead and says that he simply has no words about what happened. Not only was he paralyzed with fear, but he was humiliated by the results of the festival. His hand goes to his jacket. Even though it only lasted for a moment, he thinks, Shin-hyun has demonstrated a power that I simply can't match. This scoundrel has shown that I am no match for him. Of course, I'll admit that you're very strong, Tae-young says as he puts on his jacket, and right now, I can't beat you. But if this is how things work out, then there's no point in Mana hiding anything. A sinister smile appears on Park Tae-young's face. He leaves the office, calls his worried secretary over, and tells them they need to go. Where is it going so suddenly, he asks. Where else, Tae-young says, reaching for the collar of his shirt. We are going to meet the god of heavenly war, a week after the end of the Sun Festival. So you're saying what? The young man says into the phone, clutching his head in despair. We're at the Dawn Guild headquarters. There are a lot of employees answering incoming calls, and they obviously don't like it. Yes, this is the Guild of Dawn. Sorry, Hunter Cha Shin-hyun isn't here. Why are you looking for someone who is a member of the Unlimited Guild here? I have already said this several times. Hunter Cha Shin-hyun is not a member of the Dawn Guild. Some people are simply maddened by it, and it's scary to look at them. What? Deputy Head Lee Jahi is dating Hunter Cha Shin-hyun. Hey, who the hell are you to ask such questions? Hero and Lee Jahi, meanwhile, are sitting on couches in a very spacious office, trying not to notice the swearing, shouting, and cursing coming from outside. A young man is standing in front of them, reading them a report. As you may have already heard, we have received a total of 328 requests regarding Unlimited Guild leader Cha Shin-hyun. About 800 emails were sent on the same topic. Most of this flow is generated by journalists, as well as people who want to join the Unlimited Guild. In addition, 8 requests for cooperation, 43 offers for advertising, and 29 invitations to shoot in television programs were received. According to the instructions we received, we declined all offers and requests except for those made by that person. The hero looks at the speaker with a detached expression. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need a senior secretary here urgently, a voice says from the other side of the door. Then I'll leave it at that, says the young man. Cursing everything in the world, he hunches over and walks to the door. The hero looks after him in silence. So, how does it feel to be a superstar? Lee Jahi asks him as she reaches for a cup of tea on the table in front of her. Don't even start, Shin-hyun says, a little annoyed. I like fame, but I hate all this fuss. It was Senior Secretary Oh Dong-wang, right? I'll thank him the next time we meet. Lee Jahi seems a little sad. It may be a little late, but I want to apologize to you, she says. The hero is surprised to ask why exactly, and the girl replies that she asked him not to use martial arts. It was selfish of me, she admits, and it could have ended very badly for Shin-hyun. Lee Jahi looks down sadly with his hands folded in his lap. Listen, the hero says to her in a stern tone. You worry about too many things. Do you think your request could have hurt me? Yes, in the case of Park Tae-hyung, I had to use martial arts, but what would they do even if they realized it was them? Tae-hyung has only sensed how much difference there is between me and him, and now he won't dare to do anything for a long time. I also want to get back at them for what they were planning for Yoon-seol, but the hero pauses and turns away before finishing his thought. Lee Jahi sighs in relief and smiles. The Twilight Guild really became less active after the end of the Sun Festival. Most likely, they were hoping for an easy victory over Dawn and were shocked when it didn't happen. Park Tae-young locked himself in his residence, and the experienced hunters who had previously remained neutral came to enroll in the Dawn Guild. She extends her hand towards the hero and says that Dawn is definitely stronger than Twilight now, and all thanks to Shinyang. I say this officially as the deputy head of the Dawn Guild. Thank you to T. Guildmaster Cha Shin-hyung. The girl smiles very sincerely. The hero responds with an equally sincere look. You're finally acting natural, he says, and shakes the proffered hand. After a moment, Shinyang looks at the screen of his phone, says that he is late and that he has to go. Yoon-seol is already waiting for him. Lee Jahi asks the hero if he really received an invitation to join the Guild Union of Chetu Island and why he accepted it, even though he turned down hundreds of other offers. I'm tired of the dungeons of the big city, he says, turning toward the door. Yes, and my level has stopped growing rapidly. And yet, the hero makes a theatrical pause. This is the very island of Chetu, which is ideal for family travel. I'll be back in a month, the hero says happily and walks briskly out of the office. I trusted Lee Jahi. No, I was rather overconfident. If I had known what was going to happen, I would never have left for Chetu Island. We see Lee Jahi's cute face. It was with this expression that she saw off the hero. Chetu International Airport. Yoon-seol admires what he sees in front of him. Oppa, this is Chetu Island, she says to her brother, who is just behind her. Looking around admiringly, the girl says that this is her first time here. What should we eat? She asks the hero. Black pork. Perch. Shinyang looks at his sister with adoration. Did you like Chetu so much? He asks. But we're not just here for fun. Suddenly, the hero is called out, and it is as the head of the guild. Yoon-seol doesn't understand what's going on. It turns out that they are met here by a whole group of enthusiastic people in identical costumes. It is headed by the head of the Guild Union of Chetu Island from the Tamna Guild. Cheers are coming from all sides, but Yoon-seol doesn't like it. Moreover, the greeters allow themselves absolutely tasteless, clownish antics. Shinyang calms his sister down, telling her that it would be nice to have fun and relax after what they've been through. And then his admonitions are destroyed by one of the locals, who flies up to them, scaring the girl. He awkwardly grabs Shinyang's hand, trying to shake it. I'm Kim Keel, a squad leader from the Tamna Guild, he shouts. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Wow, Yoon-seol thinks, he's also a squad leader, but he looks even younger than me. I really enjoyed your performance at the Sun Festival, Kim Keel enthusiastically informs the hero. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I became an enthusiastic fan of yours after him. Could you sign an autograph later? I bought a t-shirt with your name on it, please sign it, right. Maybe we should go back to Seoul right now, Shinyang thinks at that moment. Kim Keel turns her attention to Yoon-seol, and the girl likes it. You must be the squad leader Cha Yoon-seol who accompanies him from the Dawn Guild side, he asks. And you seem to be the sister of guild leader Cha Shin-hyung. Very nice to meet you. One of Keel's subordinates calls out to him and reminds him of the time. He catches himself and curses himself for having completely forgotten about this factor. I'm really sorry to rush you right after your arrival, but we should be on our way, he says, literally pushing Yoon-seol and Shinyang out of the arrivals hall. He promises to tell you all the details on the way. I understand everything, the hero says. Let us go, don't touch us with your hands. Kim Keel laughs and explains her tactlessness with a very busy schedule. You said it was your first time on the island of Chetu, he says happily, continuing to push for the exit. I will arrange for you a gastronomic tour of the best local restaurants. Hyungnim, Cha Chinyan has arrived. A young man with a very simple hairstyle speaks into the walkie-talkie in Chinese. You're in Korea and you speak Korean, says the boss, who is basking in the sun in sunglasses. You don't want people to recognize you as Chinese, do you? The young man apologizes for his oversight. Hyungnim stands up from the wooden couch, sighing heavily. I think my wonderful vacation has come to an end, he says, and walks off somewhere barefoot in the sand. Guys, it's time to get to work, he informs a dozen of his subordinates, who immediately bow in respect. Welcome to the trap I've prepared for you, Cha Shin-hyung, he says softly, and Kim Keel. Meanwhile, Shin-hyun and his sister Yoon-seol are being led somewhere. Chetu Island, Waljong-rai. In front of us is a low building for vacationers, next to which you can see umbrellas from the sun, sunbeds and sunbeds. A cheerful brunette in a blue zip-up vest greets the newcomers. This is the head of the Tamna Guild, Kim Hajun. After introducing himself, the man shakes Shin-hyung's hand. He promises the guests a great time and asks Keel to bring what they have prepared. All right, uncle, he replies with a happy smile. Yoon-seol thinks that local delicacies will be served now. For example, black pork or sawfish. And indeed, the hosts prepared a treat. Keel says that after tasting this dish, guests will remember its taste until the day they die. This is a high-quality product that has been carefully selected. Yoon-seol licks his lips, expecting to see the famous black pork there. But under the huge lid, which was hidden delicacy, it turns out to be just a tangerine. The siblings don't even know how to react to it. Yoonseol tries to get her bow out, but Shinyang asks her to show restraint and not do anything to the owners. Anyway, the guests start peeling the tangerine. "We apologize for getting started right after you arrived," says Kim Hajun. "But the situation is very difficult right now, and I hope that you will understand our situation. As you may already know, the Chetu Island Guild Union has created its own independent hunter organization system. This is not the case in the rest of Korea, where organizations are divided into two camps, as in the case of Dawn and Dusk. We don't want two warring guilds because we are afraid that there will be a bloody war on the island." Until now, the Tam Guild had managed to somehow maintain the integrity of the union. However, not so long ago, high-risk dungeons began to appear in large numbers here. On Chetu for the last year, unprecedented dungeons of the 11th level of danger and higher were discovered in 5 different locations. And, as you know, Kim Hajun continues, such dangerous dungeons can only be cleared by teams consisting of experienced hunters with a minimum level of 40. And our guild can't do that at the moment, Hajun says sadly. Also, we desperately need a high-ranking hunter to lead the party, but they're all either Dawn or Dusk. Shinyang interrupts this story with his own line. "I don't understand," he says, "whether it's necessary to react to the appearance of dungeons. Can't they just be ignored? The monsters won't crawl out of there, will they? This can't be allowed," cries Kim Hajun. "If we can't keep the dungeons under control, we will lose the rights to them, and they will go first to the hunter associations, and then to Dawn or Dusk." You can see from his face that even the thought of it seems blasphemous and terrible to him. The hero tries to calm down the interlocutor. "We went through such trials to prevent the big guilds from gaining a foothold here." Hajun is tearing his hair out in frustration. "If the situation is not corrected immediately, the island of Chetu will be finished. And we are already completely desperate," says Kim Hajun. "When we heard about the Unlimited Guild, whose star lit up so bright. And then there was you, the hunter Cha Shinyang." The interlocutor tactlessly points a finger at the hero. "You've collaborated with Dawn, but in any case, you're a high-ranked hunter with an officially neutral status." Hajun's nephew Kim Keel confirms his uncle's words. "You are the true light of salvation for the Chetu Island Union. New wave. A new generation. Salt and light of the Korean hunter world." The hero looks at the guy with pity. He's crazy too, he thinks. "I thank you from the bottom of my heart for accepting the invitation of the Chetu Island Union," the guild leader shouts enthusiastically. "We will remember your kindness until the day we die." "Don't mention it," Shinyang says. "For me, this is, if you think about it, a way to raise the level and earn money." "Well, since we agreed, let's go to the dungeon right now," Kim Hajun suggests. But at this moment, the hero is called by his sister, tugging at his clothes. "There's a problem that needs to be solved before we go anywhere," she says, looking down thoughtfully. "What is the problem?" Shinyang asks, not understanding. "Black pork and sawfish," Yoonseol replies. "Seongsin Yup dungeon of Jeochu Island. Ilmayong." Something like an explosion is heard in the middle of the jungle. The members of the Tam Guild are being bombarded with something like dirt balls. "Damn it," one of them complains, "no matter how much we attack, we can't hit them because they're too fast." We see their opponents. These are strange-looking creatures, somewhat similar to monkeys. The guess about the species is confirmed by a report claiming that the case takes place in Ilmayong, the dungeon of the fire-poison monkeys. Before us is a pink energy sphere. The flow of energy with great difficulty restrains the shield bearer, behind which his comrade is hiding with a sword in his hand. "Hang in there," the last one shouts somewhere to the side. Suddenly, strange green bubbles start bubbling under their feet. "Has it melted?" the swordsman asks, looking back to where something belonging to him had been lying a short time ago. "I heard that they were poisonous, but I didn't think they would be so strong," says one of the fighters. We see monsters with red eyes that really resemble monkeys, but for some reason these creatures have scorpion tails dripping with green venom. Who would have thought that their venom is so strong that it can withstand roasting by fire and then overcome the protective barrier? The shield bearer thinks to himself. His companion realizes that their situation will only get worse as the battle progresses. If this continued, they would both be killed by the fire and the ape poison. Fighters look at their enemies with hatred, but fear is visible in their eyes. One of them even thought that they would have to deal with dogs here, but it turned out to be much more serious. Suddenly, a human figure appears in the branches of the trees above the members of the Tam Guild, around which yellow energy discharges sparkle. This is Shinyang, who, as it turns out, is responsible for the yellow energy. It comes from his hand. "Thank you so much," one of the fighters tells him. Kim Keel, who appears out of nowhere, begins to praise the great guild leader Cha Shinyang, who took out the fast-moving monsters in an instant. Only thanks to him did everyone here survive. Yoonseol tries to calm down this enthusiastic character, but it's not easy to do that, as Keel continues to praise Shinyang. Thanks to the hero, he was able to retain his magic power, although of course Yoonseol was also useful. Thanks to these wonderful allies, Keel has been resting until now, but now he's going to do his part. We see a strange picture over the head of an enthusiastic native of the island of Chetu. Several monkeys with scorpion tails hover between two red parallel spheres. The two of you, get ready, he orders his guild members, shieldmen and swordsmen. They either look at their commander with anger or contempt. In the next moment, we see them in strange poses on a red sphere above the head of a monster monkey. Lightning attack, Kim Keel asks, still looking delighted. Do you also have magic skills? Excellent, Guildmaster Shinyang. The hero looks at Keel in amazement. I'm sorry, of course, but what level are you on? He asks him. Just over 40, he says happily. Yunseol, standing nearby, can't believe her ears. What? His level is higher than mine, even though he's younger than me. The other hunters are probably around level 40 as well. They seem to have trained hard during this period. Kim Keel continues. And because we're responsible for the Chetu Island dungeons with such a limited contingent of fighters, naturally our levels are growing rapidly. And the technique you just saw, Keel continues, is very interesting. This skill is called teleportation. I had to suffer a lot to master it. It is generally considered very difficult to use. Shinyang interrupts a talkative ally and tells him that the skill didn't seem too difficult. He looks at the hero in amazement. Did you manage to master it? After seeing the case only a few times, Keel asks. It's just amazing. But what is this? The hero thinks. Why does everyone try to get closer to him at the first opportunity? Investing points in intuition seems to have paid off, Shinyang thinks. Intuition is, simply put, the ability to see the essence of things. Here is an information window for Cha Shinyang's level 53 character. Without a class. Full health. Magic power 106. There are no points available for distribution. Strength 0, Stamina 0, Agility 0, Intuition 53, Interception 0. Thanks to my martial arts skills, the hero thinks, I don't really need to invest points in any qualities, but intuition is another matter. No matter how skilled I am in martial arts, I can't see the flow of magical energy, but I actually understand the mechanism of the spell when I see it. The hero glows with joy. Now I can't fail to meet your expectations, he tells others. I'll show you everything. Yunseol looks at his brother in disbelief, trying to figure out what he's going to do. Shinyang holds 2 fingers up to his nose and closes his eyes. Don't be surprised, he says, and white energy begins to flow through his body. But Yunseol and Kim Keel, who are standing in front of the hero, don't see anything special. You haven't used teleportation yet, Guildmaster Cha Shinyang? The islander asks hesitantly. Kim Keel SSI, the hero says in surprise, opening his eyes. How do you use teleportation? We are in the forest on the island of Chetu. Scary monkeys with scorpion tails attack a group of hunters. Don't you have anything better to do? Kim Keel, glowing with red energy, asks the monsters. The ever-happy character waves at them affably. After that, a purple and obviously very destructive energy descends on the monkeys. Goodbye, says the islander, standing between the now familiar red discs with geometrically regular patterns. Monsters, without ceasing to grin, are carried away somewhere up. Shinyang stares after them, his hand on his forehead, a look of surprise on his face. With this method, says Kim Keel, who is standing next to me, I can attack monsters even alone. He holds up a warning finger. I can't lift them to a height of more than 150 meters, but creatures that don't have wings are guaranteed to die when they fall back to the ground from there. Yunseol, standing next to her brother, nods approvingly. The teleportation skills range is an empty space in my field of vision. The islander continues to explain. Here I can move anything in any direction I want. But I showed you because you asked, he says to the hero. So far, I don't see how this can help you. But Shinyang immediately shows that the demonstration was not in vain. To the surprise of Keel and Yunseol, he abruptly takes to the air. Is this teleportation? The shocked islander asks from below. You have amazing abilities. After hearing your explanation and looking at how it works in practice, I seem to get the gist, the main character replies. Thank you very much, Keel. But I think it will take some time for me to get used to how to use this skill, says Shinyang, who is stuck while descending from a height between 2 branches. This is delicious Korean food. The islanders are already devouring it, and Kim Keel invites his guests from the mainland, Shinyang and Yunseol, to join in the meal. The girl is not going to eat anything. She says that it is imprudent to have lunch now, since there are still a lot of monkeys in the dungeon. That's true, Keel says hesitantly. But thanks to you two, we have time to take a little pause. There are indeed a lot of defeated monsters lying around the picnic area. Smiling, he hands the girl food and says that the food will increase stamina, which fighters never hurt. Yunseol angrily rejects the offer, saying that she didn't come to Jochu to eat her boring kimbap on the mainland. But Keel doesn't seem to notice her guest's displeasure. He casually turns to Shinyang and tells him that the teleportation skill he performs will improve as you use it. Hero divided by enjoying the food agrees with Keel. He says that a person who perfectly mastered one technique can easily learn to work with other skills. If you train tirelessly, he advises his interlocutor, then one day you will become like me. I'll remember this, cries Keel enthusiastically as he scribbles Shinyang's speech on a notepad. Yoonseol looks at this idyllic scene and thinks that sometimes she wants to punch Shinyang even though he's her brother. You'd better stop thinking about learning anything from him by following him around, she tells Keel softly, taking a sip from her mug. He gets stronger by using methods that only he can use, so it definitely won't do you any good. I don't think so, the islander replies, because I'm the commander of the squad after all. This answer surprises Yoonseol. I am in a position where I should never be satisfied with what I have achieved, says Keel, looking down at his notebook. And more recently, I started to feel like I was reaching my limit. Looking at his notes, we can see that there is a method for using the teleportation skill. Keel apologizes to Yoonseol for being enthusiastic all this time. He just really wanted to learn something from Guildmaster Cha Shinhyun. I am grateful to my squad members for following my orders, he continues, but I constantly feel incompetent. The three men turn their gazes to Keel's subordinates standing nearby. I do not know what will happen if I accept the current state of affairs, the islander says, and Yoonseol recalls her feelings when a wolf killed a fighter from her squad. But a second later, Keel is laughing merrily, apologizing for ruining the girl's mood, and popping another portion of kimbap into his mouth. Stop talking and just eat, Yoonseol tells him, who also decides to eat this Korean dish, and she seems to like the taste of it. Hearing that the girl appreciated the taste of the local kimbap, Kim Keel again falls into a state close to euphoria. I'm so glad you enjoyed our kimbap, he exclaims happily. I can give you a whole truck, just tell me if you want more. Just don't overdo it. Yoonseol gets angry and slaps the islander on the cheek. I didn't like him that much. Shinhyun, on the other hand, looks around and asks a more than fair question. How long are we going to hunt? There are a lot of monsters in the dungeon, and they are very fast. They just don't seem to end. Kim Keel agrees with the hero. I know that, he says. There's also a limit on how many times I can teleport them. If I had known beforehand, I would have mastered the large-scale provocation skill, which causes monsters located in a large area to show aggression towards one target and gather around it. What are you talking about? Yoonseol asks him angrily. You can imagine what would happen if those things started coming from all directions. Can you guarantee that none of us will die? Kim Keel, giggling, tries to calm the girl down, but Shinhyun suddenly realizes that the islander's words have a grain of sense. A provocation. Yes, he says thoughtfully. Appa, are you serious? What are you doing? Yoonseol tries to shout at him. It seems to me, says the hero who looks at something in the blue status window, that I have found a way to solve our problem. This is the skill I've been looking for, he says, relieved. This is a description of the sovereignty skill. Type, monster skill, active skill, does not consume magic power. Rarity B, an incredibly special skill. Skill D, meaning the skill is still at the entry level. Description, if you wish, you can declare sovereignty. You can naturally gain respect and trust from others. In some cases, those exposed develop feelings of awe and blind faith towards you, but the effect may vary depending on the target. The hero recalls that he received this skill with a pebble, which was obtained in the dungeon of sinister birds in Bucheon. He learned it because he is able to learn the skills used by monsters. Thus, Shinhyun is able to use his spirit to easily subdue monsters. We see a suitable illustration, in which red squirrels trembling for some unknown reason sit humbly in front of the hero who is crouched on the ground and is emitting a blue cloud of magical energy. But then Shinhyun sees a very aggressive squirrel. But the ability to control the target's mind through the expression of the user's will was very interesting in his case. He recalls. A ferocious squirrel opens its mouth wide and rushes at someone. I combined this skill with the mind sword, which finds some expression based on the user's will, and was able to make the monsters execute certain commands. On the example of a squirrel juggling acorns, we can see what this resulted in. Although I've used this combination a couple of times just for fun, Shinhyun thinks, I've forgotten about it, since controlling monsters didn't seem to be any practical use to me. The hero thinks hard, closing his eyes. But if I put it all together, the result might be great, he thinks. We see how powerful rays of yellow energy shoot out from the hero's eyes in all directions. We see a beautiful inscription, telepathy of dominance, and then a hero standing in the middle of a black void and spreading yellow energy circles around him. A black figure, its limbs wrapped in disembodied chains, is reaching for something. The blue sky begins to stream with rays. It's a kind of mass transmission, and it's really a bit like telepathy, Shinhyun thinks. The monkeys are already beginning to feel this energetic impact. Black, chained hands reach for them. I will infuse the power of sovereignty and sword of reason into the telepathy of dominance, the hero thinks, and I'll order the monsters to appear in front of me right now. We see a white monkey screaming in terror, which can do nothing against the many hands that have taken possession of it. Shinyang suddenly understands something and we see fear in his eyes. He clutches his head as if in pain. Both Kim Keel and Yoon anxiously ask him what happened. Kyle, do you happen to have any mana left to do mass teleportation? Shinyang asks the islander. He asks again in surprise, but then says that it should be enough for several times. Excellent, says the hero. He takes his hand off his head, but still looks worried. I think, he says, smiling, I've created a little problem. The members of Kim Keel's squad can't understand what's going on around them. What is this, an earthquake? The first one shouts in fright. This is impossible, there should be no natural disasters in the dungeons. The second one answers him. This means that the frightened fighter closes his eyes from the premonition of something very scary. A monster. The guy opens his eyes in horror and really sees a monkey in front of him, alone, in the most ridiculous position. The fighters are relieved to note that all the noise was just because of one monster, which is now lying on its belly in front of them, its tail raised high up. The quake has stopped, says Yoon, who has already started pulling an arrow from behind her back. It seems that the worst part is over and everyone present can relax. At some point, I thought that thousands of monsters were running in our direction, says one of the fighters. At the same time, he notices that hundreds of angry eyes are looking at the group of hunters from the trees around them. Where did they come from? Kim Keel grabs her head. What is it all about? Yoon asks who doesn't know. Only Shinyang is relatively calm. He calls out to Keel and points his finger behind him, saying that he can deal with all the monsters there. The islander only needs to get all the other members of the party out of here. Immediately. It's a yin-yang inversion, Kim Keel thinks as he looks at the hero's hand gesture. All right, he says, and proceeds to evacuate his men. Appa, what are you up to? The hero's sister asks anxiously. To hell with it. Are you going to fight all these monsters on your own? The monsters she sees around her are truly terrifying. I can't leave you alone, the girl shouts angrily, but Kim Keel is already calling her to lead her away. We see an outstretched hand radiating red energy, and the already familiar flat circle with a geometrically correct pattern. Yoon calls for his brother, but he is already alone, surrounded by thousands of glowing monkey eyes, next to the red teleportation zone, which is located between two red magic circles. Great, says the hero, lowering his head a little. He puts his foot firmly on the ground. I can finally fight comfortably, he says, and a cheerful smile appears on his face. He stretches out his finger, which begins to emit jets of white energy. White energy rushes up. This is a very powerful stream. Its pillar looks very impressive in the middle of the forest. Kim Keel, who is standing on a cliff that overhangs the jungle, is mesmerized by what is happening under his feet. This is really impressive, he says enthusiastically to his companions, who, by the way, they don't look happy at all. Guildmaster Cha is incredible, exclaims the islander. I can't believe a human can do that. It seems that those who say that his level is more than 60 are not lying at all. He turns to his companions and asks if they think Shinyang is the one who summoned all the monsters he's currently fighting. His words make Yoon think. Keel looks at the girl and thinks that no matter how strong Shinyang is, he's the only person Yoon has left. And now he's fighting thousands of monsters all by himself. She must be very worried right now. Yoon really has her fists clenched tightly. Kim Keel walks up to the girl and reassures her with a smile. He says he understands how anxious she is right now, but her brother is incredibly strong, so everything will be fine with him. You know him better, more than anyone else, isn't it? He asks. I think you should trust him more. Yoon looks at the other person blankly. What the hell are you talking about? She asks the islander. He's the only one getting all these experience points right now, she says angrily, even though he promised to take me with him. So you're not worried about him? Kim Keel asks with relief. Why should I worry about him? Yoon asks uncomprehendingly. Now there he has a complete delight. The hero towers over the fallen monkey, his hands full of energy, his face full of perfect delight. It was helpful, he says. Yes, I gave them the order to appear in front of me, but I never thought that they would gather from all over the area. If I use the dominance telepathy that comes from the combination of sovereignty and sword of reason correctly, the monsters will flock to me from all over the dungeon. Once again, we see the ominous black hands wrapped in chains reaching for the frightened ape. Dungeon raids will now be much faster. Shinyang's face glows with both magical energy and excitement. A sign appears, activate dominance telepathy. The hero, standing in the middle of a forest clearing, joyfully clenches his fist. Smiling, he calls for all the monsters that are here to pounce on him. I'll kill you all, he shouts. Jahi, who is calmly sipping her tea, flinches in surprise, spilling the drink. Are you all right? Her assistant asks. No, it's fine, I just thought I heard some crazy laughter, the girl replies with a smile. The young man clears his throat and says that in this case he will continue his report. As you know, he says, the head of the Twilight Guild, Park Ti-hoon, still hasn't left his residence, and the hunters subordinate to him noticeably reduced their activity. As a result, the rights to the dungeons we fought for are safely and effortlessly transferred to us. The young man removes one leaf and looks at the next. Jahi listens to him with his chin on his hand. It seems, the young man continues, that we won't have to pay much attention to Twilight just yet. It's weird, she thinks. Park Ti-young is too quiet after the humiliation he suffered at the Sun Festival. I'm afraid he's up to something behind closed doors again. We see the sinister figure of Ti-young, from which a greenish energy vapor is emanating. Jahi falls into heavy thought. From them, she is led out by a document that the secretary puts on the table in front of her. Now, he says, the Guild of Dawn has a different problem. What is it? The girl asks in bewilderment, reading the text. This is a very dangerous dungeon that was recently discovered in the Tibik Mountains. The risk level of this object is 13. The level of hunters who can go there must be at least 60. The climate is desert. This is really something creepy. The dungeon can rightly be called the most dangerous of those that have ever appeared on this planet. We see huge sandworms and hunters killed by them. Tibik Dungeon is a hot, searing desert. We see here 2 hunters with swords, ready to give battle to the enemy. Behind one of them grows something large and as if composed of large plates. The hunter turns his head towards this object and looks at it with fear. Insect monsters as tall as a 10-story building that were hiding in the sand are approaching us right now. There aren't many of them, says Jahi, her secretary, but every single one of them is capable of defeating a high-ranked hunter. The information is reliable. It was received personally by the head of the guild, Jeon Jun-ho. It won't be easy to deal with them, the girl sighs. It seems that the squad that will go to destroy these monsters will include herself, the guild leader and the director. Jahi thinks about it. At times like these, she thinks I should have a Shinyang by my side. The girl imagines how the hero destroys monsters, then picks her up and carries her away from danger. Deputy head, the secretary addresses her. What are you thinking so deeply about? You don't look very well today, he says. Maybe you should leave early and have a good rest. But the girl just laughs, looking at the papers handed to her. I'm perfectly fine, Secretary Nim, she says. But at the same time, Jahi's elbow hits the teacup and knocks it off the table. Dishes shatter into many small pieces. The secretary asks the girl not to worry, he will quickly clean up everything. She sighs heavily, but doesn't say anything. Am I losing my mind? She thinks. But when will Shinyang SSI get back? She wonders, looking at the broken cup. It's been half a month since we entered the Chetu Island dungeon. Shinyang, hands in his pockets, watches as the local fighters fight another monster. A horse's hoof appears in front of one of the hunters' faces. A second later, the animal itself jumps out of the dust cloud, which seems very angry. The horse rolls its eyes and whinnies loudly. I've learned how to use the compulsion skill, which involves using sovereignty and the sword of reason at the same time, Shinyang thinks. We see Yoon-seol and Kim Ki-la dancing with joy over the corpse of a horse and the red crystals lying next to it. The hero lures out monsters by cutting circles with his fellow Chetu dungeon companions. It can be said that he artificially raises the levels of both his sister and members of the local hunter guild. You're only treating me like a child because you're a couple of levels above me, Yoon-seol says, grabbing Keel by the collar. He laughs and says he doesn't know what she's talking about. The system of increasing the level of hunters is based on the distribution of experience points in accordance with the amount of damage that a particular hunter deals to monsters, the hero thinks. This means that his teammates would level up faster if he wasn't around, but that doesn't always work. Shinhyun notices something interesting. He sees the shield bearer running away from a trio of monster horses, screaming for his help. Although his combat specialization does not imply retreat, much less flight. In general, I have to step out of the shadows from time to time, sighing, says Shinhyun. The running shield man's face lights up with the energy of the hero's skill. The terrible horse that chased the fighter whinnies loudly. In the next second, 2 people are already standing on a tree branch, and the animals are rushing under them without causing any harm. Shield Boy, wiping away his tears, thanks Shinhyun, who calmly asks him to let go of his leg. Why can't you raise your level of fortitude here? He thinks to himself. Even though I help them all level up, the hero thinks, it's not like I don't get something in return. We see Yoon-seol and Kim Keel quarreling with each other as usual in the clearing. In the local dungeons, Shinyang learned the teleportation skill from Keel and then mastered it to such an extent that he began to amaze the former owner. Although, of course, to bring the skill to a degree that satisfies itself, the hero still has a lot of work to do. If only because in the previous case, the final point of teleportation fell on a tree branch. I finally get it, Appa, says Yoon-seol. The most famous products of the island of Chetu are not black pork, sawfish, or tangerines. In front of us is a green bottle, a shot glass, and some local appetizer with fish, noodles, and vegetables. Chetu Island is primarily a delightful dungeon where you can level up perfectly, says a slightly drunk Yoon-seol, holding a full stack in her hands. There's a blue sign in front of us. Cha Yunseol has gained 3 levels. The current hunter level is 38. Kim Keel, who is sitting at the table next to the girl, says that his neighbor really had a good workout this time, and he grew up quite well thanks to the guild head Shinyang. I think she's hooked on these raids, the hero thinks. This is a great Saju, Yunseol declares, and sets his glass down with a loud thud. Our visit to the island, Shinhyun thinks, was also meant to be a family vacation, so I was afraid that she would be disappointed with all the raids and training. But she seems to enjoy everything. She sees everything as pleasant memories from the holidays. Kim Keel takes out 2 pieces of paper and informs them that the next raid they will go on is requested by the Sado Guild. Dungeon Danger Level 11. It is inhabited by monsters called wolf bats. These creatures have the muzzles of wolves and the torsos of bats. They are very fast, and their sharp teeth can easily slice through human flesh. Shinhyun is alarmed by this information. Wait a minute, he says, a bat-infested dungeon can only be a cave. The hero's suspicions increase. He scrolls through some thoughts in his head. Then he slams his fist down on the table. Kim Keel scratches her chin thoughtfully. The request states, he says, that the customers want to exclude me and Yunseol, meaning that only the guild leader Cha Shinhyang gets an invitation to the raid. This is supposedly due to the fact that the cave is dark and there is almost nothing to see. That is, the Yunseol bow and Keel's teleportation skill will be useless there, by and large. So they only want Appa, and they don't need the rest, Yunseol says thoughtfully. I don't know why, but it offends me. All this does look a little suspicious, but in fact it will only make us feel better, the hero answers her, who is sitting relaxed in a chair with his arms folded across his chest. You two have worked too hard, and I can see that you are very tired. Take advantage of this opportunity to have a good rest. Kim Keel tries to object, but Shinhyun interrupts him. Don't worry, I'll quickly complete this task and get back to both of you. A cave, yes, the hero thinks, meanwhile, to himself. Unpleasant memories pop up in his mind about the world he was in before. Nice to meet you, Guildmaster, hero hears. A cheerful man with a sparse beard holds out his hand. He reveals that his name is Lim Jong-guk, the head of the Sado Guild, and that he is also a guide for the upcoming raid. You must have already been briefed on the planned raid, he says. Should we go to the dungeon now? The hero agrees to this suggestion. The two of them approach the object, the entrance to which is a glowing greenish portal. Damn it, Shinhyang thinks, looking into it. Just the thought of it being a cave makes me extremely uncomfortable. But I can't give up this job because of my personal feelings. In any case, you need to try to do it as quickly as possible. Whatever's waiting for me inside. Behind the hero, meanwhile, there are 4 fighters in almost identical clothes. I'll finish quickly and come back, the hero thinks. In front of us is the entrance to the cave. Inside it, bat-winged wolves writhe with white energy. Shinhyun fights monsters, but there is a very strange conversation going on behind his back. What should we do? Guildmaster asks the young man who is holding a lantern in his hand. He's dealing with them faster than our plan calls for. Lim Jong-guk doesn't say anything back. I'm almost done here. What's next? The hero asks the sweet couple. Jeonjeok praises him for his excellent work. According to him, Shinhyun fully justifies those amazing rumors. People who talk about it. All right, he says, if we follow this road, we'll quickly find ourselves in an unexplored area. We see the tablet screen with a yellow dot burning in the middle. Well, let's hurry then, says the hero, and sets off briskly. His companions look at him in disbelief, as if he really is in too much of a hurry. Are you all right? Lim Jong-guk asks the hero. I don't think you look very well. Shinhyang replies that he's fine, but mentally curses everything in the world. Even though so much time has passed, the horrifying memories of being in that cave are incredibly strong. The hero sees that terrible black abyss in front of him, and it seems to him that it happened to him just yesterday. Lim Jong-guk stops Shinhyun with a hand on his shoulder. He says that if the hero is not feeling very well, then there is no need to rush anywhere. Immediately, the Sado Guild leader's face is filled with animal fear. Didn't I tell you I was fine? Shinhyun says threateningly, turning her eyes to him with burning anger. Lim Jong-guk's tone becomes ingratiating. He curses himself for worrying unnecessarily and asks the hero if he wants to quench his thirst. Without waiting for an answer, he orders his assistant, who, as it turns out, is named Oi, to give the guest a bottle of tangerine drink. He replies that he will bring it right away. An awkward silence is established, and the hero feels that his hands were shaking. We need to get out of here as soon as possible, he thinks. Otherwise, I'll kill them all. As you can see, the road gets a little confusing from now on, says Lim Jong-guk, smiling and pointing at the tablet screen. But we've already scouted the area before this section, so there's nothing to worry about. This time we will lead the way. He orders his subordinates to clean up the middle way. This fuss seems rather suspicious to the hero. However, he follows his companions, trying to convince himself that his fears are unfounded. Lim Jong-guk walks right in front of Shinhyun and keeps saying something. It's very dark here, please watch your step. Have you ever been to Sakuram Grotto? It doesn't look like this dark and dank cave at all. If there is an opportunity, I will give you a tour of the various caves of the island of Chetu, he promises with a smile. The hero gloomily replies that he is not interested. How much further to go, he thinks. Shinyang is alarmed. What is this feeling, he thinks, looking up at something. Under the roof of the cave, a sun-like figure appears, made up of a magic geometric circle and 12 tablets attached to it. The hero is shocked. He recognizes the trap formation. The drawing resembles a diagram of an illusory maze. It is not fatal, but as if a person finds himself in it, he will lose orientation in space and start walking in circles. We can see the squad members walking in front of Shinyang asking questions and looking somewhat strange. Why is the ground so uneven? Has the road here always been like this? The hero draws attention to the yellow energy jets. Wait a minute, he thinks. Judging by the flow of energy, this trap formation is leading us somewhere. What is the Miram formation doing here? Shinyang thinks, gritting his teeth and clutching his hand. Is this the work of a man who has returned from Miram, or does she exist independently and in this world? Damn it, whatever it is, I don't want to experience anything related to Miram, especially in a cave. We need to get ready as soon as possible. Shinyang decides for himself and closes his eyes. This part of my life is in the past. He rubs the sleeve of his jacket. Okay, the hero says and takes a decisive step forward. I will walk into your trap and accept your invitation. Well, what? Let's see who is behind all this. A very determined expression appears on his face. Tibik Mountains, Desert Dungeon. A huge red worm bursts out from under the sand. Attention, young Junho, who has come here to fight the monsters, is shouting. This is the desert, gather yourselves together, he says and holds out his sword, blade down. The weapon emits jets of yellow energy, and we see a notification about using the Crusader skill Joshua's Blessing, which increases the team's defense. The worm starts sinking back into the sand. He's slowly retreating. One of the squad members shouts. He didn't have any strength left. Suddenly, he notices something that makes him afraid. The squad sees a very bright red flash. Attention, everyone, Junho calls out loudly. This is his main skill. We're winning, we can't back down now. A wave of yellow energy rolls over the head of Dawn. This stream rises in front of the squad and a powerful tornado is carried far up. Come on, Junho orders in a heart-rending voice. Jahi, who is emitting pink energy around her, rushes to attack. She is determined and doesn't look back. Destroy it. The girl hears the commander's order and uses her trusty daggers. Why is it so hot in here? She asks. Her daggers are sticking out behind her, most likely in the torso of the fallen monster. We finally killed him. Well done, Deputy Guild Leader. Why Jija's companions cheerfully greet her. Great job, Jahi. Young Junho slaps her on the back. If things continue like this, the dungeon won't be that difficult at all, right? Ordinary fighters standing a little further away do not share this delight. Easy just for you and me, a happy Jahi tells him. We've only killed 3 monsters, and the rest of our fighters are barely able to stand up. We should take a break, she says, turning to her companions, at least for half an hour. One of the tired fighters thanks the girl with a happy expression on his face. I don't think you're happy about my participation in this raid, Junho asks her. Jahi asks him to clarify his point. Well, you've been spending a lot of time with Cha Shinhyun lately. There are even rumors that you are dating. You're so funny, the girl laughs and elbows her boss in the gut. The man, trying to clear his throat, says that he was glad to cheer her up. Jahi's mood is changing rapidly, and she asks not to joke about it in the future. Besides, she doesn't understand why the other guild directors didn't join the raid. If the 2 of them were here, the dungeon could be cleared faster and easier. You mean Kwon Ajung and Yoon Sungmin? The other asks. They said they had an appointment for today. The girl is surprised. What kind of meeting is this, she thinks. Are they back to their old ways? Outside the desolate dungeon in the Tibik Mountains, an archer sneaks up on 2 hunters standing near the greenish portal that serves as the entrance to the dungeon. I think they said something like, we'll join you after we've done our business, right? The archer takes aim and pulls the bowstring, and behind him stands another fighter wearing spiked shoulder pads and gauntlets. You haven't been to the Sun Festival yourself, have you? Hunter Cha Shinyang showed his best side there. I saw it on the tape, it was really crazy. 2 guards standing at the entrance of the dungeon are calmly chatting with each other while eating hamburgers. Have you come here to play? A young man in a business suit asks them, holding a stack of papers held together with a clip. One of the fighters recognizes the senior secretary and greets him. One of the guards laughs foolishly and says that all the guards in charge of the gate look the same. He even suggests trying his burger. The second one just as flippantly says that nothing special is happening here anyway. The secretary says in a stern tone that it is unacceptable to lose vigilance even in this case. Even though the Twilight Guild has been very quiet lately, it may be preparing an unexpected strike. And his words are immediately confirmed in the most obvious way. Large purple energy spheres appear in the sky, which quickly approach the participants of the conversation. A point shines through each ball. We see a bright purple flash, and a trickle of blood begins to trickle out of the senior secretary's mouth. It's a marksman's skill, he thinks, as he crouches on one knee next to the corpses of careless guards. I think it's called a meteor shot. What's going on anyway? Only a few people in the guild knew about today's dungeon raid. Is it possible? He thinks as he watches the man emerge from the purple mist. He's from the twilight, the senior secretary thinks, trying to make out the enemy. Senior secretary, a young man greets him happily. There you are. Are you all right? Director Yoon Sungmin, his secretary recognizes him. What's going on here? He asks his colleague, relieved to see an ally after all. It's an ambush attack by the Twilight Guild, he replies, and, it seems, performed by a very strong fighter. Bloody bastards, the secretary hisses, turning away from Sungmin. So they'd been lying low for a while, and then they'd struck. It will take Jeon Junho and Lee Jahi a few more hours to complete the raid, he thinks. We should go there and warn them or. Suddenly, he understands something. But, Director, how did you know we were here? I was told that you had an appointment of some sort. The secretary looks suspiciously at his companion. A moment later, Yoon Sungmin's spiked gauntlet flies into his chest. The young man screams, blood pouring out of his mouth. I've already finished my business, Senior Secretary Oh Dongwang, the blood-spattered scoundrel mockingly announces. Yoon Sungmin takes out his phone and dials someone's number. Yes, I'm done here, he says to his invisible companion. Director Kwon Ah-jung will be joining us later. Just in time, the other person answers, and he smiles broadly. This is Park Tae-hoon, and he just got off the helicopter. We've arrived, he informs Yoon Sungmin. It's very good that you've already taken care of everything. Well done, directors of the Dawn Guild. Park Tae-young happily concludes the conversation. The head of the Twilight Guild arrives at the scene of the carnage, where he is. Bowing down to the ground, Yoon Sungmin greets. These directors really did a good job, Tae-young says with satisfaction, looking at the corpses lying on the ground. I'm very happy, he says to the bowing directors. I suggest we continue working together. The traitors readily agree. Jahi, you're very naive and ignorant, Tae-young thinks. You probably never imagined that there would be traitors in the upper echelons of your guild. I bribed them before the Sun Festival even started. We see the faces of the villains he mentioned. They played their part well. While humming a tune, Park Tae-hoon steps on the bloodied arm of one of the dead men. This is a dungeon, he thinks. It seems like it's been 7 years since I was in it with Jahi. He looks with some nostalgia at the greenish portal that is in front of him. It was when I first came back from Muram and chose the path of the hunter, he recalls. Bundy, Appa, over here, we're here. We see 3 happy faces, 1 girl and 2 boys. They are very young and seem to be perfectly happy. We've discovered a new dungeon, one of them says. There was no one in it yet. Alright, I'll be right there, Lee Jahi says happily. She is followed, as far as you can tell, by Park Tae-hoon, who remembers all this. He calls out to the girl, and she turns to look at him. How long will it take us to clean up after them? Park Tae-hoon asks. Don't you understand that they only slow us down, preventing us from developing? Or did you suddenly get this complacency? Have you forgotten the time we spent together in Muram? We need to level up as fast as possible. Lee Jahi looks at him, but doesn't say anything. You've considered my last offer, he says, clutching something greenish in his hand. Look at this. This is an ancient jade that I received from the heavenly god of war along with his message. It increases the level of martial arts even if you just carry it with you. The girl looks at the 2 green stones lying on the outstretched hand. Let's serve the heavenly god of war, Park Tae-young asks. If we go after him, we will become much stronger than we are now. The girl asks him to stop. Tae-young looks at her hopefully. I understand that Auntie is anxious and even scared, says Lee Jahi, but we're not in Muram. No one here is trying to kill us, and there's no particular reason to become stronger than others. I'm happy just to be around them, the girl smiles as she looks back at her friends. Let's forget the cruel world of Muram. Okay, Unni, hurry up, her name is called from the side. I heard it, I'm already running. Lee Jahi laughs and runs off to join his friends, while Tae-hoon does. Still clutching his ancient stones in his hand, he stares after her in disbelief. Jahi, I believe that you are the only person who could understand me because we experience the same pain. Beads of a jade necklace hang from Park Tae-young's arm. But in your life, I was always in the background, and all because of these weak and stupid insects. Taehyun sees himself as a stranger to the girl's tight-knit group of friends. I don't like them. The fighter, covering himself with a shield, strikes with a weapon that leaves a green energy trail. It's very weak, thinks the blood-spattered Taehyun, looking straight ahead. Jahyun, Lee Jahi shouts frantically as she stands with her back to Taehyun, who is struggling with someone. The latter turns to the girl and looks at her reproachfully. She leans over her friend, who is bleeding from her mouth, and asks in disbelief how the squad could have been defeated by such a weak monster. Maybe it's because we've been playing around too much, indulging them, Taehyung thinks. Hyun, please get Jihyun out of here as soon as possible, asks the archer, whose face is twisted in fear. She'll be in more danger if she stays here. Tihun Hyun, can you hear me? A bloody hand holds the sword tightly. Please do something. We trusted you so much. What are you doing? The young man shouts desperately. Tihun Hyun. Those events were etched into Taehyung's memory forever. Park Taehyun, it's always like this, isn't it? You always take care of Lee Jahi and give her everything you have, but you don't mean anything to her. The only reason you're treated with disrespect by others is because of Lee Jahi's weakness. Taehyung sees a stream of black mist coming toward him as he stands in the middle of a green clearing. That's because she forgot how desperate she was in Muram. We see beads with jade stones around Taehyung's neck, and that's all. A sphere of red energy is reflected in the jade. Because of all these insects, we can see Taehyung's eye in close up. Get rid of everything that makes Lee Jahi weak. The corpse of an archer. If you do that, 2 more bodies. Lee Jahi will understand you. Someone is shouting Park Taehyung's name at the top of their lungs, and he is standing with completely crazy eyes and holding a bloody sword in his hand. Jahi, I'll set you free, he says, smiling. And I'll start with all the weaklings that surround you. Park Taehyung really does seem crazy. Park Taehyun is standing with his back to us, looking at something. There's a puzzled look on his face, as if he wants to say something, but can't find the strength. The directors from the Dawn Guild standing behind him don't understand why he is acting so strangely. You guys guard this place. Taehyung's deputy Yan Sunjuk appeals to the traitors. He turns his back on them. If any members of the Dawn Guild come out of the dungeon, kill them. Sunhyuk's eyes are burning with hatred. Traitors stutter to let you know that they understand what is being asked of them. Sunhyuk then walks up to Park Taehyung and asks him what's up with Cha Shinhyun. He replies that things are going well on the island of Chetu and there is nothing to worry about. Gowling has taken action, he says, and we can see that he is referring to a young, muscular guy with a pigtail. No one can escape the traps he sets. We got a message that the situation there is developing faster than expected, Sunhyuk replies, but the boss interrupts him and says that he fully trusts his deputy. He instructs him to monitor what is happening there. Sunhyuk responds with a strange look. Once we're in the dungeon, I'm the one who's going to kill Lee Jahi, he says, holding up his hand. I was promised that. Taehyung looks at him with some disdain, but then a smile appears on his face. Of course, a promise is a promise, he says cheerfully. Do as you wish, Sunhyuk. The deputy's face lights up with joy, but his boss really thinks that he simply does not have the strength to carry out his threat. Well, guys, it's time to do our job, Park Taehyun exclaims. A hunter is someone who hunts, he says, and we see the portal that this group is going to go to. Dawn will be our prey today. The band of scoundrels we see before us is very determined. What is this place? Shinyang asks his companions. I've been following an illusory maze, but there's nothing here, he thinks. His guides don't understand what's going on either. It seems a little different from what we were told. What is it? I thought that someone would be waiting for us here. These phrases betray an insidious plan, and the hero asks his companions to explain who exactly they were going to see here. They glare at him, but don't say anything. Tell me what you're up to, Shinyang demands, but the scoundrels pretend they don't know what he's talking about. The hero loses his patience and grabs the nastiest of them by the face. I won't pretend I don't notice anything anymore, he says threateningly. I noticed from the very beginning that you were behaving very strangely. The one to whom the hero squeezes his face looks at his abuser with horror. If you want to get out of here alive, speak up, Shinyang says, squeezing his victim's head. The scoundrel just grunts, unable to say anything intelligible. The hero suddenly feels that something is happening behind him. This is clear from the expression in the eyes of his companions, who are looking in that direction. What is it? The hero tries to understand. You guys are a little faster than I expected, says the man hiding in the dark, taking off his glasses. Because of this, I almost made a mistake with the timing. This is already known to us Hyang Nim. One of his henchmen informs him that the target has arrived at its destination, and the Chinese replies with a smile that this is just wonderful. It's nice to meet you like this, he says, and Shinyang sees a bright red light in the depths of the cave. This is an explosive device attached to the cave wall. I don't even know what to say, Shinyang says. A powerful explosion follows, which covers everyone who was in the affected area at that time. Lee Jahi starts abruptly as if she has sensed something. What is it? She thinks. Her mind is full of bad thoughts, but she tries to push them away. You don't have to be so sensitive, she muses. It's only distracting and confusing. Standing on a raised platform, Lee Jahi looks down to see 2 huge worms sticking out of the sand, their fathomless toothy mouths open. So, one monster is about 400 meters east of me, she thinks, the second is 400 meters west, and the third is 400 meters south. I wonder if I can destroy them by the end of the day. Suddenly, the girl has to take her mind off these calculations. She hears an explosion, and then notices that a cloud is rising from it in the place where her squad members were resting. This can't be happening, she thinks, and we see the desert in flames. Jeon Junho lets out a loud battle cry. A brutal, bloody massacre begins. opponents do not spare each other at all. The head of the Dawn Guild misses a powerful punch from Yan Sun-hyuk and screams in terrible pain. But he holds the sword tightly and is not going to give up. Jeon Jun-ho lands a punch but misses. Another powerful swing follows, and this time the opponent falls to the ground. Yeong Jun-ho gets down on one knee and puts his sword on the ground, trying to apply his signature skill. Damn it, this is a terrible situation, he thinks. Yan Sun-hyuk is a very unpleasant opponent in his own right, but he's not the only one to deal with. There's also Ryu Seonggun and Choi Jae-hyun. And, as if these three aren't enough, he sees the hideous smile of the main enemy. It's Park Tae-hoon, who is lying down on the ground with his legs crossed at ease. How are we going to defeat this monster? Jeon Jun-ho thinks as he holds onto the hilt of his sword. Park Tae-hoon claps her hands. This is something that a high-ranked fighter should have demonstrated, he says. I thought you were just a worthless puppet, but you've shown yourself to be the true leader of the Dawn Guild. Yeong Jun-ho, I'm sorry for underestimating you, he says, looking at the enemy with admiration. I never imagined that we would meet like this, Jeon Jun-ho says angrily. How did you get here? What about the hunters who guarded the entrance to the dungeon? The head of Dawn glares angrily at his opponent sprawled on the sand. You mean those guys? Tae-hung continues to cheer. Isn't the answer obvious? You can see what's happening right now. A predatory gleam appears in the scoundrel's eyes. Jeon Jun-ho is furious. This dungeon was discovered recently, and almost no one knew it, he says, still on his knees. And our raid here was organized in the strictest secrecy. There seems to be a traitor among us, he screams and rushes at the enemy, his sword raised in a howl. But, whatever it is, I will chop all of you to pieces. Jeon Jun-ho is terrifying to look at, it's the epitome of raging rage. There's nothing wrong with your spirit, one of Tae-hyung's henchmen tells him. It's just great and all, but don't you think you should hurry up? Jeon Jun-ho looks at him anxiously and seems to understand what Toyot meant. We see a sharp spear impale one of the members of the Dawn Guild squad. A guy with blood spurting out of his mouth calls out to Jeon Jun-ho plaintively for help. The guild leader looks on in shock as his fighter begs to be saved. He doesn't want to die. Jun-ho, I'll finish him off, says the knight whose spear pierced the guy. The head of Dawn looks on in horror at this terrifying scene. Sumyung, he shouts, not believing that his fighter is dead. Ah, what a heartbreaking scene, Park Tae-young screams mockingly, holding his forehead in a dramatic manner. I'm going to cry now. No, seriously, all these guys who are worse than insects, they will always be just a burden and nothing more. The scoundrel continues to grimace. I'm an insect to you, too, Lee Jahi shouts angrily as he appears behind Tae-hyung. She charges at him, trying to stab him with her daggers. The blade sweeps through the air, and it's reflected by Yan Sun-hyuk, who came out of nowhere. Oh my god, what a meeting, Lee Jahi laughs. We meet again, baby, she says. I don't think you're happy to see me, Park Tae-hoon asks, having escaped the dagger. I've missed you, Jahi, he says, trying to look happy. The girl looks him straight in the eye. You're always talking nonsense, she says, taking a step toward him. Get up, Park Tae-hoon, she says, getting into a fighting stance. I'll make sure you can never open your mouth again. Tae-hyung calls out to Sun-hyuk, who readily asks what the guild leader wants from him. Deal with her, that's the order. In the air, something collides with something, scattering large sparks. We can see that this is a consequence of Lee Jahi's heated battle with Yan Sun-hyuk. The opponents exchange very powerful blows, clearly trying to kill each other. The enemy's weapon flies in front of the girl's face. She does not remain in debt and strikes with her dagger, which confidently hits the target. Sun-hyuk has to defend against this attack with his hands, and apparently it's very unpleasant for him. Yan Sun-hyuk is forced to go on the defensive in order not to lose his life. You learned a lot when you became Tae-hyung's pawn, didn't you? Lee Jahi recalls the events of the recent past to his enemy. A couple of years ago, you were a novice who couldn't even hold a knife properly. The girl's dagger is only a couple of centimeters from the opponent's throat. Yan Sun-hyuk lunges back, and the girl has to put in a lot of effort to dodge. You're so impatient, she grins. She's a lot more dangerous than I expected, Sun-hyuk thinks. If I'm not careful, things will end up very sad for me, Lee Jahi understands in turn. She looks at the enemy huddled in the small distance and knows that she will have a very difficult time. The wounded man in the chest, Jeon Jun-ho, meanwhile, has not yet given up. He went into a battle rage and furiously cursing, calls to battle all the enemies who want to finish him off. He can hold out for a while if he gives everything he has, Lee Jahi thinks. But the biggest problem is Park Tae-hoon. The girl makes a jump to get to the scoundrel, who is still sitting quite calmly on the sand a little away. What a she thinks, as Tae-hyung nonchalantly whistles a song and waves at her. Lee Jahi is trying to properly assess what is happening. He can't possibly be so calm in this situation, she thinks. What are you up to, Park Tae-hoon? It seems that Jahi is now much stronger than I thought, says Tae-hoon. He seems very pleased. It seems that everything is almost finished on the island of Chetu, too. If everything went as planned, then Cha Shin-hyun is already dead. We see a pile of rocks from under which some light breaks through. Something is clearly moving under them. The light is getting stronger. There's an explosion and rocks fly in all directions. Wow, says Shinyang, holding his head but smiling at the same time. How angry I am. The hero's eyes really shine with a very unkind light. Lim Jong-guk struggles to climb the newly scattered rocks. God, my head hurts, he wails. What exactly happened here? He notices the hero standing quietly and opens his mouth in bewilderment. This is stupid, Shinyang tells him. You said it was very urgent and you even forced me to use my own energy, all in order to try to kill me with some stupid bomb. The islander pretends to be very happy to see the hero safe and sound and pretends to ask if he is alright. What kind of fool would plant a bomb here? He asks with a forced laugh. But the fun quickly stops, because Shinyang uses one of his skills to remotely strangle the scoundrel. Members of the local hunters guild try to catch their breath, but Shinyang suggests that they end this unpleasant conversation by telling the truth. Tell me what it was like here, he orders a group of terrified hunters. They say they don't know or understand anything, but Shinyang doesn't believe them. The guild that owns the dungeon is responsible for everything that happens in it. It should know everyone who comes in and out of it, he says. In addition, it will take days of work to build such a trap and install a bomb at such a distance from the entrance. And you're saying that you didn't know anything? Shinyang Jong-guk asks. You think? I'll believe it, the hero says in the most menacing tone. The interrogator's eyes are filled with genuine horror. He cringes, unable to control himself. His fists were white from exertion. We don't know anything, it's true. Jong-guk's eyes are streaming with tears. We almost died here ourselves, he shouts. And all because of you. It is clear that this time he conveys his true feelings. But Shinyang can't be penetrated even by these sincere tears. It seems that my words just don't reach you, even though I gave you a lot of chances, says the hero. We see the familiar black hands bound by ghostly yellow chains. This is the first time I'll use this in public, he tells the sobbing islander in his darkest tone. A sign appears, absolute order, activate. Even if you go crazy, don't blame me, Shinyang tells the islanders. Lim Jong-guk, who has all the questions addressed, continues to shed big tears. But something in his head is changing. Looking down, he begins to speak. The Sado Guild received financial support from the Twilight Guild from the very beginning. Our main task was to make sure that the Chetu Island guilds thought and acted as Twilight needed them to. The other day, Jong-guk remembers, something unusual happened. He was sitting in his office when he heard the voices of his subordinates trying to stop someone. He came to us on his own, says Jong-guk. We see this picture. A muscular Chinese man with a long pigtail looks around the room. He says the office, of course, lousy, but he likes it. He then approached Jong-guk, introduced himself as Park Tae-young's big brother and asked if anyone had contacted him yet. It was the Chinese hunter Gao Ling. Although Lim Jong-guk had no idea who it was or how he was connected to the Twilight Guild, he gave the impression that he was telling the truth and was actually very strong. The Chinese man takes off his glasses and looks at the other person with piercing yellow eyes. I'm here because my stupid little brother asked for help. Can you buy me some tea first? He says in a confident tone. Jong-guk's subordinates rush to the kneeling guild leader and ask him why he is acting so strangely. The same one, sobbing, he tells Shinyang that his guild was just following Twilight's orders, which were passed down through Gao Lin. Jong-guk was just supposed to bring the hero to a certain point at a certain time, and the Chinese had to take care of everything else. Shinyang looks at the guild leader Sado and realizes that he is telling the truth. Communication signals don't reach the dungeon from outside and don't go from here to there, he thinks. Which means Gao Ling must be here somewhere, too. Hell, I can't feel him, he realizes. Has he already escaped from here? Okay, you're starting to annoy me, Shinyang tells Jong-guk and his charges. Let's get out of here, he says to the guy who, sobbing desperately, he tries to reach out to his boss, who is still not thinking straight. You're bothering me, step aside, says the hero and stretches out his hand, in which a white energy sphere is already glowing. He doesn't understand what they want from him, and Shinyang explains that the dumbass can lose his upper body if he doesn't move to the side. A powerful pillar of energy bursts out of the hero's hand, which almost touches the confused and incomprehensible islanders. This stream hits a pile of stones that are littered with the passage of the cave. The barrier collapses and eventually disappears. What is it? He broke through the passage, the islanders shouted in disbelief. Can we get out of here? What was this skill? One of them asks another question, looking at the back of the retreating hero. Who cares? His companion replies. Is this git going to just walk away? We're saved. Jong-guk's long-haired henchman understands. Now I can go home, wash up, and go to bed. His partner is trying to revive the boss, who at some point lost consciousness. But this joyful turmoil quickly ends. I almost forgot to clean up the ends, says the hero, turning his head to the islanders. The white sphere lights up again in his hand, and the guild members feel the impact of the energy flow. They start fussing and shouting. Exit. Boss, wake up, we're all going to die here. I don't want to die in this trap. please spare us. We will never do anything bad again. Please don't kill us, you fucking bastard, comes from behind the newly formed rebel, but Shinyang is unmoved by the screams and pleas. I myself suffered in the cave for 10 years, and now you can feel what it is like. You can't get out, your problems. So the Twilight Guild is behind all this, says the hero. Well, thank you for the excuse to deal with you openly. I'll start with Gao Lin. You surprised me, Li Jahi says with a smile, wiping away the blood that has appeared at the corner of his mouth. We see a notification, assassin skill, shadow clone technique. It was a good shot, says the girl, kneeling down in front of a group of enemies. Looks like Park Tae-young taught you pretty well. You're still so cocky, Yan Sunjuk replies to her. Why don't you wipe the blood off your mouth before you talk? How about shadow dance, aren't you going to use it yet? Li Jahi looks at his opponent thoughtfully. Then she smiles and asks him what he's talking about. I don't plan on using this, the girl declares, trying to catch her breath. This is a very valuable skill, and spending it on a shrimp like you would be very stupid. Sunjuk can be seen to be hurt by these words, and his face turns grim. I can handle you this way, boy, Li Jahi says with a smile. Her opponent is gnashing his teeth in anger. After shouting the girl's name loudly, he lunges at her. Look carefully, I'll show you now, says Jahi. We see the names of the two skills she was going to use, the Dark Sovereign and Killing with the Kiss of Death. You will see how a real assassin fights, the girl says in the most decisive tone. She uses the Bloody Path of Moonlight. We can see the Tebik Mountains illuminated by sunlight. There's a battle going on here. Li Jahi tries to run away from Yan Sunhuk. She makes a jump, landing on the sand. Then it pushes off and flies high up. Her opponent looks wearily at this balancing act. But then he gathers his thoughts and performs a series of punches. A massive explosion occurs under Li Jahi, and she has to make every effort to stay unscathed. Sighing tiredly, the girl looks at the pursuing opponent. A typical servant of Park Tae-young, she says, and uses her daggers. How restless you are, she shouts, still invulnerable to Sunjuk's attacks. We see a bright light with a crimson hue. Li Jahi throws a series of punches with his daggers. From the look in the girl's eyes, it's clear that she expected more from her attack. Yan Sunhuk is chasing after her again. We see Yanami's hand surrounded by purple energy, and the Yan Sunjuk original skill notification appears. This is a poison spear that rushes towards Li Jahi and falls into the hands that the girl managed to cover herself with. Li Jahi screams in pain. What is it? She thinks. Something strange is happening to the dagger in her hand. Li Jahi, not at a loss, jumps away from the opponent once again. This is poison mastery, she thinks. Did my dagger melt just by touching it? One careless move and I could be fatally wounded or even instantly killed. The girl sees huge sand dunes in front of her and many human figures towering on them. This is getting interesting. She throws her daggers to the ground and tells the opponent that she has noticed a change in his fighting style. I remember that you copied me using 2 daggers, says Li Jahi, smiling. It's all thanks to you, Yan Sunjuk replies after a moment's thought. The girl looks blankly at her enemy. Didn't you tell me, he says thoughtfully, about the method that allows the assassin to become stronger? I don't remember anything like that, Li Jahi says, taking out 2 new daggers from the miniature portals that open behind her. Venom's skill is very unpleasant, she thinks to herself, but I'm still more confused by his clones. Where to find his real body if they all look the same? Don't you remember? Front Yan Sunjuk asks the girl. Well, I'll make you remember, he says hatefully. This is your last chance, use the dance of death, he advises Li Jahi. You're not tired of begging me to do this, the girl replies. I'm sick to death of hearing that. I already told you that I won't use it against shrimp like you. Li Jahi smiles, but she thinks that she can't use the dance of death right now, as she will need her strength to fight Park Tae-young. Yan Sunhuk grits his teeth in anger. I asked for it, he says, and rushes forward. The girl's eyes widen at what she sees. Then die this one, Sunjuk says. His shot hits the target. Li Jahi, judging from the blood spatter, is seriously injured. Yan Sunhuk recalls the past. Just look at you and see if Jeho is laughing merrily. You copy me completely, even using 2 daggers like me. You're the guy Park Tae-young is raising as my replacement, right? Sunhuk recalls sitting on the ground and shaking in terror. There were tears in his eyes then. This Taehoon is a real bastard, Li Jahi tells him, with several bloodied corpses lying next to him. Even though I feel sorry for you, the girl says to Sunjuk, who is cowering in fear, your existence worries me a lot. It seems Taehoon is using you as a mockery of me. The guy asks Li Jahi not to come any closer, but she gets down on her knee right in front of him. She puts the tip of a dagger to his throat and asks if he knows the method that allows the assassin to become stronger. Without waiting for an answer, the girl says that this requires a person whom you sincerely want to destroy. If you want to get stronger, she says, looking directly into Yan Sunju's eyes, try to hate someone so much that you want to kill them. I, for example, do just that. At that moment, Park Tae-hoon appeared behind Li Jahi with several of his fighters. The girl stood up and informed Sunjuk, who was crying in fear that she was very tired today, so she would probably go from here. Even though the bastard she wants to kill more than anything else came here on his own. Never mind, she can wait until next time. Standing in front of Sunjuk at full height, the girl gave him one last piece of advice. You don't have the talent of a hunter, find something else to do if you can. Then she just said goodbye and left the guy sitting there with his mouth open in amazement. Sunhyuk's memories are coming to an end. It was very disappointing, he says, looking down at his hand. You bullied me and completely denied me the right to exist. After that, I gave up everything you taught me and started all over again to surpass you. Their impaled body, Lee Jahi, continues to bleed. Even though you're from a rival guild, Yan Sunhuk continues, I've always respected and even admired you. Do you have any idea how disgusting it was to feel pity and self-contempt from such a person? The scoundrel looks at the girl who is bleeding to death, sinking to the ground in front of him. Yes, you were right, he says, raising his dagger at Lee Jahi. My obsession with killing you has made me a better assassin, he says, his expression completely insane. Ah, yes, I remember something like that, Lee Jahi replies to him. In the place where she was just now, a powerful pink vortex appears. Sunhyuk opens his mouth and looks at this incredible phenomenon in disbelief. If you wanted to surpass me, how could you do exactly what I advised you to do? Asks Lee Jahi unharmed and also very joyful. But at the same time, you didn't listen to my most important recommendation, to give up this profession to hell. How stupid you are, the girl says, folding her arms and giving off her trademark pink glow. It's a shadow clone, Sunjuk realizes, and he wants to howl in frustration. The real Lee Jishai, meanwhile, appears behind him. Damn it, since when do I fight a clone? He screams in his mind. I'll teach you something else, the girl says, smiling. She holds out her hand, fingers spread. The assassin shows his true colors only once. At the moment when it kills the enemy, Yan Sunhuk looks at her in despair. He knows that he is finished. Lee Jahi, he screams as he is absorbed by the pink energy of his opponent. Until the very last second of your life, the girl says thoughtfully. You were just a pathetic imitation of me, she says thoughtfully, looking at nothing. She walks away from the dead enemy, turns her head to him, and calls him a stupid bastard for the last time. Suddenly, Lee Jahi realizes that there is someone else nearby. You are truly incredible, the man says, although Sunhyuk also showed his best side. I feel sorry for him, of course, but it can't be helped. Jahi turns to face the speaker. You're finally here, she says. The bastard I want to kill more than anything else in the world. Naturally, it's Park Tae-hoon. Did you like what I prepared for you? He asks Lee Jahi. I feel both disgust and pleasure at the same time, the girl replies, holding out her sharp dagger in the direction of the enemy. I'm telling you just in case. Put aside any thoughts that you will die quickly and easily. Tae-young laughs. He raises his hand, and green energy begins to spread out from the plate that is on it. That's exactly what I wanted to hear from you, Lee Jahi. The scoundrel raises his sword, smiling. Enemies stand opposite each other, radiating powerful streams of energy. Tae-young's is green, Jahi's is pink. Shadow dance, says the girl. Her opponent looks at her defiantly. Get started. We see a mobile phone screen that shows the name Lee Jahi. The caller is unavailable. Please leave a voice message. Shinyang can hear you. What is she so busy with? I need to tell her about Sado, he says sourly. You seem to be trying to contact Lee Jahi, he hears a voice say. She won't be able to answer right now because she went on a dungeon raid. The hero notices that armed men are beginning to appear around him, ready for battle. Signals from electronic devices don't enter the dungeon. The source tells Shinyang. We see that this is the Chinese Gao Lin, who apparently never leaves his sunglasses. How do you like the cave? He asks the hero. Both you and I should be familiar with such places from Muram. Am I right? Cha Shinyang. The hero, who is surprisingly calm, is reflected in the sunglasses of a Chinese man. I know you did this, and I can see that you are indeed from Muram, Shinyang replies, veins of white energy beginning to sparkle in his hands. But how do you know that Lee Jahi is on a raid right now? How do I know? Gao Ling smiles. I'll answer if you ask nicely. To say or not to say. The Chinese man pulls the glasses off his eyes. I don't think you're going to say anything, the hero says calmly. Okay, it doesn't matter, because I can just force myself to tell the truth if I have to. Jiho gives Gao Ling an intimidating look. I knew it, the Chinese thinks, smiling. It's just incredible. He is actually able to control the cultivation art of the heavenly origin martial arts. But Gao Ling folds his hands in front of his face with his index fingers sticking out, summoning the magical energy of red and yellow colors. Shinyang is perplexed to realize that the same flat circle that he has already seen in the cave is forming around him. Is this a trap formation? He asks warily. I think you'll soon realize that it's very different from the formations you've already encountered, Gao Ling says proudly. This is my greatest work. I combined the formations I learned in Muram with my witchcraft skills. He stretches out his fist and says, Heavenly Golden Seal Formation. A bright yellow flash appears in the distance, and the entire Chinese squad rushes towards Shinyang. At first, the hero does not feel anything, and it seems to him that the Chinese has cruelly miscalculated with his spells. But then it becomes clear from his look that he feels some discomfort. Shinyang grits his teeth, not understanding what's happening to him. And the enemies, meanwhile, are not going to stop. My body is getting heavier, the hero thinks. He strikes at the opponent, but the opponent blocks him with his sword. The fist stops when it hits the steel, causing no damage to the weapon. This makes Shinyang think again. I can't use my inner energy. A cheerful smile appears on the face of the enemy who has covered himself with a sword. This is just disgusting, the hero thinks to himself. Shinyang dodges the blows that his enemies try to throw at him. He has to dodge and place blocks. Sword of Kai, he thinks, watching his opponents closely. It can't be that all of them, the hero thinks, were from Murim. We see the smug faces of Gao Ling and his 3 charges. Cha Shinyang, you have no idea what a pleasure it is to see that shock on your face, the Chinese man says, smiling. How does it feel to have all your inner energy taken away? My heavenly golden seal formation will absorb all the power you have. The hero continues to beat off the blows of opponents and dodge them. And all this energy, says Gao Ling, goes to my subordinates who have studied martial arts. Shinyang blocks the next attack. No matter how strong you are, you can't stand up to us, the Chinese happily informs the hero. In fact, the stronger you are, the less likely you are to win. The power you've accumulated will kill you. Cursing in the direction of the insidious enemy, the hero continues to repel the attacks of enemies. Gao Ling smiles and notices that Shinyang isn't very verbose. Stop talking and show me what you can do, says the hero, putting his foot on the ground. Your bodies will remember what the Supreme Sword Emperor will do to them. Shinyang says a very strange phrase, but in fact every word in it has a meaning. Trap formation. This is a type of dimension that is formed by placing natural objects or mystical objects, such as amulets, in a certain way. Legendary strategist and trap builder Zhuge Liang used an 8-part formation and traps to summon wind and lightning, which allowed him to destroy an entire army of enemies. We can see how impressive this very worthy man looked. In all his knowledge and omnipotence, he could compare with God. I admired him from a young age, says Gao Lin, and we see that the Chinese really trained. He sits in front of an open book and twists a magic circle with mysterious characters around his torso. I created trap formations both in Murim and in this world after I returned. When I'm in a formation, I can become a god. The Chinese man's posture and eyes indicate that he really thinks so, and it seems that this was supposed to happen, but the attacks of the hero's opponents do not hit the target. Daggers, swords, fists, everything goes by. I think I'm starting to understand, Shinyang says. The metal energy is the foundation of the heavenly golden seal formation. The hero, glowing with his white energy, thinks intently, while his enemies, unable to inflict even one wound on him, look very ridiculous. They scold Shinyang like hell, but there's nothing they can do about it. Wait a minute, he tells them irritably. My body is almost ready. White energy swirls around the smiling hero, and he still doesn't pay any attention to the fierce attacks of Gao Ling's henchmen. The Chinese man, cold sweat running down his cheeks, looks on in shock. I've never seen this body technique or even heard of it, he thinks. And since when did he block his acupressure points? That's impossible, Gao Ling muses as he looks at the relaxed Shinyang, protected from any outside influence. How does it move so fast and freely inside my trap formation? Hey, you bastards, the hero says to Gao Ling's henchmen, I wanted to ask you something from the very beginning. Are you from a demonic cult? One of the recipients, with a long red braid, asks again in bewilderment. You don't seem to know anything. The hero scratches his head thoughtfully. I understand why. Because even though you've mastered martial arts, you haven't been to Murim. The opponents stop attacking Shinyang and open their mouths to stare at him. Your sword formations are too lousy for people who have returned from Murim. We see a picture, the analysis of which allowed the hero to draw this conclusion. Moreover, Shinyang says calmly, I can't sense the energy of the heavenly origin martial arts nurturing art from you. You're very observant. Cha Shinyang, a smiling Gao Ling, praises the opponent. You're absolutely right, my subordinates are different from me. He spreads his arms wide. They were transformed into martial artists. We see the faces of all 3 of his companions, turned into martial artists. The hero's face expresses doubt. If you were around my level, you could manipulate other people's meridians and transmit internal energy. But you didn't come up with the level and caliber for this. You're using some kind of sorcery, Shinyang says to Gao Ling's 3 henchmen. They stand inside their magic circle and stare at the hero in silence. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do what I just saw. Okay, whatever you use, I don't see much difference, says Shinyang. Just admit it. Sorcery or demonic art. Wow, you know such things, Gao Ling replies with a smile. That's right, I used for my own purposes human garbage, which is so much on the city streets. These people live poorly and poorly, but their lives are actually of some value. Here are skulls, bones, and blood. They have brought me great benefits, the Chinese continues. After taking only a few thousand lives, I was able to raise fighters who are as good as high-ranked hunters in terms of their level. We see some kind of monster bathed in bloody energy. This means, says Gao Ling, that no matter what sorcery you use, you won't be able to break out of my trap formation. Shinyang calmly scratches his ear with his little finger. Do you admit to using human sacrifices? The hero smiles ominously. That's why I love followers of demonic cults, he says. A yellow star lights up above the Chinaman's head, the scoundrel feels its energy, and a frightened expression appears on his face. What is it? Resonance. At this level, Gao Ling bends at the small of his back and brings his hand to his chest. He's feeling really bad right now. Because when I deal with followers of demonic cults, Shinyang says clearly, his hand emitting a powerful stream of white energy, I can torture and maim them as much as I want. I don't feel guilty, on the contrary, I feel very good about it. It is clear from the hero's face that he is telling the truth. So, let's start hunting down a demonic cult, he asks his enemies, flashing a dazzling smile. He is answered with dirty curses. I'll kill you, Gao Ling shouts, trying to produce magical energy. Joy appears on the faces of his henchmen. I can move my body again, one of them exclaims. I am overwhelmed with energy, declares the second. How pathetic you are, Shinyang tells them wearily, lifting his bent left leg. You are happy just because you have stolen some inner energy. The hero forcefully lowers his foot to the ground. From where it hit, a wave of white energy spreads out, washing away the yellow energy that Gao Ling was generating. What's going on? The Chinese man asks with horror in his eyes, his hands still folded in front of his face with the fingers raised in the air. His henchmen are writhing in agony. My whole body is on fire. Help! It's so hot. It is impossible to look at the faces of these poor people without pain. Shinhyun, meanwhile, stands quietly, illuminated by its white energy. Fire destroys metal, fire melts metal, he tells Gao Lin. He asks again, as if he can't believe what he's hearing. This is basic knowledge for those who understand the relationship of the 5 elements, explains the hero. Since your trap formation is based on metal energy, I made some minor changes to it. How do you know that? Asks the Chinese man, cold sweat running down his forehead. In Muram, I spent some time studying trap formations, Shinyang replies. It was something of a hobby of mine. A hobby? Gao Ling can't believe his ears. I've spent my entire life studying traps, he's shaking with anger. Was it just a hobby for you? He's on his knees, and there's a look of doom in his eyes. It seems that the realization of your own insignificance came as a shock to you, the hero says sympathetically. But you have to understand that it makes sense. Smart people are usually good learners. Shinyang's face breaks into a smile. You're going to die soon, he says to the kneeling Chinaman. The trap formation you maintain burns away your true inner Kai. Gao Lin is really very ill. You've taken the lives of countless people, so I don't think you'd be too sorry to lose yours, would you? The hero goes down on one knee in front of the exhausted enemy. A sign appears, activate compulsion. Shinyang holds out his fingers, and energy begins to pour out of his eyes. Well, then I'll start extracting all the information I need from you. What happened to Li Jahi? Fear appears in the hero's eyes. Li Jahi. We see the bloodied girl lying motionless at the feet of her enemy. Li Jahi is dead. She's lying face down, and there's a pool of blood under her. I've been a loner all my life, both in the real world and in Muram. And then I met you. I didn't think anyone else would come back from Muram. I'm Park Ti-hoon, nice to meet you. The young man who delivered this monologue smiles sincerely and extends his hand. Jahi, run away. What will happen to you? I'm alright, run away quickly. This time, he uses a shield to fight a Godzilla-like green lizard in an attempt to save his partner. The caves still remind me of Muram, the same young man complains, clutching his head with both hands. Please don't leave me again, Ti-hung says, gently taking his friend's hand. Even though caring for you weighed on me, I was also very grateful to you, Ti-hung thinks, because no one has ever needed me so much before. Ti-hung calls out to Jahi, who is lying in her own blood. The girl is still alive. We shouldn't have met, she thinks. Her eyes are open, but she can't see anything. Get up already, Ti-hung says, grinning nastily. Do you really want to die like this? He comes right up to the girl. Jahi gathers his strength and heaves a sigh as he gets to his feet. She glares at Ti-hung. She lunges at him, trying to reach him with her dagger. A notification appears, shield skill. The weapon slides across the layer of red energy without causing any damage to Ti-hung. Another reflect shield alert. The stream of energy that should have hit Ti-hung bounces off his shield. Li Jahi looks at the enemy in disbelief. He jumps high in the air and does a somersault. You seem tired? Ti-hung laughs merrily as he lands. And your dance of death is deactivated, too, he says, standing in front of her again. Give up, he demands. He's really that strong, Li Jahi thinks. This time I was joking with him. Taehyung stands in front of her with a satisfied smile on his face. The girl carefully looks at her enemy and then asks to answer the last question. Taehyung narrows his eyes and answers her. Why did you kill them? Memories pop up in the girl's mind. She sees the faces of her friends and their bloodied corpses lying on the ground. You're talking about it again, Taehyung says in a fake voice. I'm so tired of this question. Can we talk about more interesting things? The girl's hand, which is holding the dagger, begins to tremble slightly from this feigned indifference. You've always avoided answering that question, she says, and I need to hear it this time. Taehyung is lost in thought. It's because they were weak, he finally says. Isn't it common for a person to crush the weak, says the scoundrel with a completely insane expression on his face. I think I went crazy for a second, Lee Jahi replies with a smile. When I thought I could talk to you like a sane person. I've had enough, let's get this over with. The girl, tears streaming from her eyes, finds the strength to smile. I'll kill you, she thinks, and throws herself at Taehyung. Her eyes burn with hatred, and she flies up to the scoundrel, trying to stab him with her daggers. Taehyung raises his sword and blocks the blow. This is a very hot fight. Its energy can be seen very far away. Shinyang is sitting on a cliff overlooking the sea, looking at the screen of his phone. The message that he sent has not yet been delivered to the recipient. The hero remembers Gao Ling's white face in the last conversation with him. The Heavenly War Guild worships the god of heavenly war, right? There seem to be other ground squirrels that look like Park Taehyung. The hero wanted to get a lot more information, but the Chinese man died very quickly. He turned out to be weak somehow. We see the corpse of Gao Ling. The braid on his head, which was once black, has become completely gray. Alright, Shinyang muses, looking out at the sea from the rock. He gave me a location, but I'm now 450 kilometers away from that point. Some sea creatures are splashing in the crests of the waves. Shinyang recalls 2 magic circles with monkey monsters over the head of one of his previous enemies. It seems teleportation is the only thing left for me in this case. With my current abilities, I'll get there in 20 minutes, he thinks as he walks to the very edge of the cliff. But why do I think about these things? Lee Jahi is just a business partner. Shinyang moves away from the cliff edge. I don't have to save her, even if she's in danger. In Murim, it's perfectly normal to die and kill other people because of personal grievances. I have absolutely no obligation to interfere in these matters. The hero's sneaker stands firmly on the rock. He remembers Lee Jahi's words. Cha Shinyang SSI, I'm asking you out. The girl smiles very sweetly and holds out her hand to him. It seems that this memory is very important for the hero. Other images related to Lee Jahi also pop up in his mind. You seem to know about Yunchen Yenren tea, she says. I only visited Hunan to drink it. Why can't you be honest with me? The girl shouts, grabbing the hero by the collar. Yunxiao isn't the little girl you remember anymore. I want to tell you this officially as the deputy head of the Dawn Guild. Thank you, Guildmaster Cha Xinhyang. The hero remembers both Lee Jahi's face and her handshake. Something hits him, and he opens his eyes wide. The hero starts laughing. His laughter flies over the sea and echoes in the overhanging rocks. I think I've lost my mind, the hero says, wiping away tears with the base of his hand. He makes an obscene gesture with a sharp movement. I thought it was only Yunxiao and myself that mattered to me in this world, Shinyang thinks. He smiles, his fingers twined under his chin. But it seems that there is another person in this company. The hero seems perfectly happy. We see a cloud of dust on the spot where the hero's foot just stood. Shinyang is running as fast as he can. Wait for me, he says. Lee Jahi. In front of us, as the inscription shows, are the Tibik Mountains. Kwon Ajung smiles as he sprawls on a chaise longue. Yoon Sungmin is standing next to him, and the 2 scoundrels are clearly enjoying themselves. Next to them are bloodied corpses and a greenish portal leading to the dungeon. I'm glad I joined the Twilight Guild, Sungmin says, taking a sip from his glass. My salary has tripled from what it was at dawn. They also gave me an apartment. You know, at one point I thought it was going to go wrong, Ajung says, looking thoughtfully into the distance. Because of that crazy bastard. You mean Cha Shinyang? Of course, his companion asks, remembering how our hero effectively lowered his finger during a duel at the Festival of the Sun. Hell, who would have thought that such a monster would appear? He had indeed almost snatched victory for Dawn. But it seems Shinyang should be dead by now, Yoon Sungmin suggests. Ajung, lounging on a chaise longue, agrees that this is very likely. Even if he survived, he wouldn't be able to get here from Chetu Island. Suddenly, both villains start looking around anxiously. From the thickets located nearby, birds fly up, which, apparently, someone scared off. What was that sound just now? The terrified Ajung asks. His partner says he has no idea. Yoon Sungmin asks, referring to the strange purple glow rising above the forest. Has it always been so quiet here? Very strange indeed, agrees Kwon Ajung. It's scary here, he says, breaking out in a cold sweat. He rolls his eyes, listening intently to what's going on around him. We see an eerie ghostly figure with glowing eyes sneaking up on 2 portal guards. She holds out her fingers to them. Ajung and Sungmin cry out when they see this creepy apparition, but these screams are quickly silenced. Before us is the blade of a weapon. Jahi, what are you doing? Laughs Park Tae-young, who is clearly amused by the girl's attempts to finish him off. You said you'd kill me, come on, show me what you can do. Where did your enthusiasm go? Why are you only defending yourself? Jahi's eyes show that it's really very difficult for her. Will you give me something interesting to do? Tae-young never tires of bullying her. The blades of the fighting enemies collide once again. Jahi looks at his weapon and can't believe his eyes. Her dagger is broken. In the next second, she sees Tae-young's hand coming towards her. The scoundrel grabs the girl by the hair and again shouts bullying. Concentrate. Where are you looking anyway? Tae-young looks like some kind of maniac at this moment. He stops and laughs out loud. It's so boring, he says, turning his back on Jahi. You dare to unleash your claws against me when you're at such a low level? He asks the girl who is sitting helplessly on the ground. You don't seem capable of much more than that. Jahi really looks pitiful, one eye can't open, and his face is covered in blood. How's it going? Now you know which one of us was right, don't you? He brings his face very close to the girl's. Jahi can only grit his teeth in anger. I should have just gone after the heavenly god of war. Here is the correct answer, and it's not too late to do that. I'm giving you one last chance. Join me. A bloodied Jahi looks at Tae-young in fright. Together, we will become a force that no one and nothing can oppose. Guild leader Park Tae-hoon, I appreciate your offer, Jahi says softly. Tae-young looks at her expectantly. But I'd rather die than go with you, she says with disdain. Please get out of my life. The bastard starts shaking with anger. You, what? The heavenly god of war. Who is stronger, and who is right? No, seriously, you're not a kid anymore. Mark my words, the girl says with a smile. You're going to die because of this god you're chasing like a dog. What? Tae-young looks at Lee Jahi with anger and incomprehension. Shinyang is looking for the heavenly god of war. We see our hero smiling, and then him, but already chained to the cave wall. Shinyang has only one desire, to take revenge on the person who ruined his life. Kwon Ajung is being pulled around like a sack of potatoes, and he just groans weakly. Do you think Shinyang SSI will let you, the celestial god of war's henchman, live? The girl asks Tae-young. Oh, yes, Shinyang, he says, laughing. Listen carefully, Jahi. He's either already a corpse or he's about to become one. These words terrify the girl. I ordered his assassination from the Sky War Guild. They are very strong hunters who serve the same god as me. The scoundrel smiles smugly, but someone has already appeared behind him. A special unit of the Sky War Guild, led by a returnee from Urim, has been sent to Chetu Island for this task. Any of his fighters are stronger than most high-ranked hunters. Even if Cha Shinyon leveled up at the most abnormal rate, he wouldn't survive a battle with this guild. The scoundrel's face shows that he does not doubt his words at all. Hey, speaker, stop. Tae-young is hailed from behind, and it's the Shinyon that was just mentioned. You seem very pleased with yourself, don't you? The hero smiles mockingly. Tae-young is shocked, which is also evident from the fact that he has started to stutter. Shin, Hyon, where are you from here? Did you think I was going to be killed by these degenerates you lured to your side? We can see it, that the hero is not only pulling Kwon Ajung's arm, but also carrying his comrade on his shoulder. As I recall, during the Festival of the Sun, they were both members of the Dawn Guild. The hero throws the traitors at Tae-young's feet. They suddenly attacked me, so I politely knocked them out. Shinyon beats hand in hand, shaking off the dust. Shinyang SSI, the hero hears Jahi's voice. I knew she was alive, he thinks. Now he notices a girl who, unable to believe her luck, smiles happily at him. We can see how badly she's hurt. Tae-young, meanwhile, is trying to make sense of what Shinhon's appearance means. Gao Ling was defeated. But even so, how could a guy who was on Chetu Island be here so quickly? The hero calls out to Tae-young, and he grits his teeth in anger. Long time no see, Shinyon says. This is our first meeting since the Sun Festival, isn't it? Two alerts appear, shield skill and reflect shield. A small red sphere lights up on Tae-young's shield. I ask you a question, Nit, Shinyang says, and charges. Its white energy colors Tae-young's shield, which just glowed red. We can see that Tae-young is starting to panic. Do you have a religion? Shinyon asks him, who is. On the contrary, he smiles. If not, take one immediately and start praying. For saving your soul. We see the hero's fist up close. Because today I'm going to beat you to death. Shinyon strikes. Cha Shinyang, Park Tae-young yells desperately. He raises his sword over his head, which sinks into the greenish portal. Two sworn enemies start a battle. Tae-young strikes, but our hero easily deflects it. We see two vague figures against a bright yellow headlight that has grown up over the desert. Tae-young strikes with a sword that glows with red energy, and Shinyon defends himself with his bare hands. From his appearance, it is clear that the fight is not going quite according to plan. Tae-young lands a sweeping blow, and we see the trail his weapon leaves in the air. We martial artists met each other and started a battle to the death. Shinyang begins to speak, having just dodged the opponent's punch. I think it's appropriate to start using martial arts, don't you think? A bright blue sphere appears in his hand. An explanatory message appears, 18 dragons subduing palms. Is this the palm technique? Park Taehyun can't believe his eyes. Shinyang raises his weapon over his head with the clear intention of striking. A blue sphere circles over his head. Another explanation, the dragon soars in the sky. We see that the ball, from which a powerful energy stream is shooting, is located next to the hero's hands. This wave is approaching Taehyun. He looks at what is happening and thinks that this skill was known only to the head of the beggar sect, and only he could use it. How could Shinyang master it? Taehyun hums thoughtfully, then he drops his shield. I think you stole this battle skill somewhere, he tells Shinyang. I won't let this cheap trick destroy me. He shouts at the top of his lungs and raises his sword to strike. Waves of bright orange energy radiate from his body. Something not very clear is happening. But then we see a bright explosion. What's up? Jahi thinks as he tries to shield his eyes from the bright flash. I don't see Shinyang or Taehyun. They were both blown away by the explosion. Deputy guild leader, are you alright? She suddenly hears from beside her. Whose voice is that? She asks, looking back in the direction it came from. Jahi sees Jeon Jun-ho. The guild leader is wounded and leaning on his sword, but his face is glowing with joy. He is happy that the girl is alive. Jahi rushes over to him. How did you get here? What about the other members of the squad? She asks. They're all dead, Jeon Jun-ho replies bitterly. We have fought our enemies to the death, he says, and we see the corpses of the dead. Only I managed to survive. He coughs up blood. Damn it, I'm all mixed up, energy and blood, Taehyun thinks, sword in hand. It was much more devastating than I expected. The surviving henchmen run up to him. They ask if he's okay. What's going on here? This entire area is completely destroyed. Is this what Jahi did? Questions follow one another. The most important thing is that you are not in the best condition, Taehyun is told by his servants. I think I hear familiar voices, says a man walking on the desert rocks. Just look who I see. Ryu Sang-gun and Choi Jae-hyun are both here. Long time no see. This is Cha Shin-hyung again. His enemies recognize him and cry out in surprise. How did you get here? One of Taehyung's henchmen asks hysterically. The bastard isn't tired at all, his boss thinks. This is too bad, as my internal energy has not fully recovered. Taehyung looks at the enemy with anger and fear. I need to buy some time, he thinks, and turns his attention to Sang-gun and Jae-hyun. The Git seems to understand what it needs to do. Ryu Sang-gun and Choi Jae-hyun, kill him, he orders. The named characters are terrified, and they are not at all eager to engage Shinyang in battle. After using such a complex skill, he shouldn't have much energy, Taehyung encourages them. We need to get rid of him right now. The hero crosses his arms and stares at Taehyung in disbelief. Are you crazy? He asks. Can't you hear me? Taehyung shouts to his servants. Do as you're told, before I kill you myself. The scoundrel's face looks very menacing, at least to the terrified Sang-gun and Jae-hyun. All right, we'll follow orders, they say, and prepare to attack. You're going to pay for what you did at the Sun Festival, Sang-gun says, a yellow energy blob appearing in his hands. The second servant's helmet begins to glow purple. Shouting something cheerful, they rush at the hero. Dance of the Fire Dragon. That should be enough, Taehyung thinks. I'll buy you the time I need. I'll have time to recover. However, the joy that was on his face just now is replaced by amazement and fear. Two figures are racing through the desert area. They are Jeon Jun-ho and Jahi. Shinyang is here, the boss asks his deputy. Shouldn't he be on Chetu Island? Ask him about it yourself, the girl replies. It should be here somewhere. Jahi notices something, and a look of surprise appears on her face. I feel a little better now, someone says over the bloodied corpse. I was trapped in a cave. Then I quickly teleported and fell into the sea. Then there were the mountains. We see that the narrator is a happily smiling Shinyang. I thought I was going to go crazy with the rage that was engulfing me. He makes an obscene gesture against the background of several dead enemies. Jeon Jun-ho and Jahi look at the scene in front of them in amazement. I can't believe it, thinks the first one. He's done it in such a short time, the girl can't believe her eyes. It's all over so quickly, the hero himself thinks. Okay, I'm done with the aperitif, he says. It's time to start the main course. He walks towards the terrified Taehyung. The scoundrel panics. What should I do? I still haven't regained my strength, he thinks. The hilt of the sword trembles in his hand. But even if I recover completely, he thinks, I won't be able to beat him. Shinyang seems like a monster to him, an invincible monster. Don't shake, Taehyung hears someone say. You can still fight. Taehyung is about to cry out in horror, but the jade ornaments hanging around his neck start to glow brightly. You're very strong, the voice tells him. Who? Me? Taehyung doubts what he's hearing. You haven't shown your best yet, so keep fighting until he uses his true strength. The words he hears are imprinted on Taehyung's brain, and, as it seems, they give him strength. Taehyung is dramatically transformed. It's amazing, he shouts happily. My body was filled with energy. He looks resolutely at Shinyang. With this power, I can win, he thinks. He's bursting with energy. Wow, the hero smiles as he looks at this transformation. It seems that he decided to use his secret trump card. Well, let's fight it out. Defeating a strong enemy will give me much more pleasure. Prove that you are a useful tool, Park Taehyung, a voice whispers in the scoundrel's head. We see the lower part of the smiling face and a piece of chain in front of the chin. You're almost at your peak, Taehyung hears. Come on, show yourself. Miram's status windows begin to flash in front of the smiling face. Cha Shinyang, Park Taehyung, glowing with dark violet energy, looks intimidating. His eyes are bright and he's smiling like a madman. Wow, you have so much energy, Shinyang tells him, smiling. Were you hiding your skills? No, it's not your natural strength, says the hero. Do you get it from the necklace? We see that the jade hanging around Taehyung's neck is actually glowing. The scoundrel takes off and rushes swiftly to the attack. Wow, how fast you've become, Shinyang says, getting ready to meet him. Clown, you're happy early, he teases Taehyung, his hand on the hilt of his sword. It's borrowed energy, and you think you can use it to your heart's content, right? Well, I will do you a great honor, says the hero, drawing his weapon from its scabbard. Using a sword for me, the Supreme Sword Emperor, is a very significant event. But Taehyung doesn't seem to hear him. He rushes to the attack with the same burning eyes. A notification appears, Park Taehyung's original skill. Even though I'm not perfect yet, I promise you'll love it. Shinyang holds out his sword, smiling. Taehyung, who has a completely insane expression on his face, delivers a powerful slash. But he sweeps past the calmly standing hero. Hold on tight, Shinyang says, smiling. He strikes his own blow, the trail of which shows what a powerful energy he carries. Here is a stump of a sword. Look at this, the hero says mockingly. It's all because you have a gun dangling in your hand. I can't believe you lost your gun. The hero is openly having fun. This is a complete disqualification of you as a martial artist, and the jade stones that gave you extra energy seem to get hooked. We can see that they are indeed noticeably dimmed. That's all you wanted to show me, Shinyang says, holding out a hand that glows with white energy. He lands a sweeping blow and hits Taehyung. The scoundrel, blood gushing profusely from his mouth, crouches down on one knee and hangs his head heavily. I have a lot of questions for you, says the hero. He grabs Taehyung by the throat. I am most interested in the heavenly god of war, he says menacingly, looking his enemy straight in the eye. You're still alive because of the questions I have, so be happy. Shinyang tightens his grip on the scoundrel's neck. Otherwise, I would have killed you the second you hurt Yunseol. So, will I hear the answers? The hero's eyes begin to emit powerful yellow energy. A notification appears in front of us, call an absolute order. Shinyang holds Taehyung tightly by the throat. The heavenly god of war that you worship. Who the hell is he? Taehyung, blood pouring from his mouth, finds it very difficult to say that the heavenly god of war is the one who sent them both to Miram. Shinyang can't believe what he's hearing. A yellow Miram status window appears in front of us. Then these windows begin to fill the space above the hero and Taehyung, whom he is strangling. How can this be? Exclaims Shinyang. We see ghostly chains that link the Miram status windows together. There are more and more chains, and they completely fill the space. This is the creature that is currently in my body, Taehyung screams desperately. What's going on at all? Shinyang says with horror in his eyes. The chains got to him, too. The hero opens his eyes as if after a long sleep. He sees that he is suspended by strong chains that bind his hands. Shinyang shouts loudly, what's going on here anyway? We see that he is standing in the middle of the cave, and the chains that extend from his hands are attached to the walls. This is the same cave in Miram, Shinyang says, puzzled. He seems to recognize this dark place. It can't be, it's just ridiculous. Am I back here again? You know this place, don't you? He hears a voice from the side and doesn't know who might have said the words. This is the world of my mind that was created by my mind sword, says Park Taehyung, who is sitting quietly on a large boulder nearby. What do you think? Does this place remind you of the past? You're the first person to get here. Nice to meet you, Cha Shin-hyun. Taehyung looks very sincere. This is our first face-to-face meeting, isn't it? It seems that he is really glad to meet you. Go. An enraged Shin-hyun shouts, trying to break free. The other person laughs. Like everything else here, the chains are made from my mind sword. It will be incredibly difficult for you to reset them. Maybe you should calm down. The hero continues to stare at Taehyung. You're not Park Taehyung, are you? He asks the other person. I see that you use the sword of reason very freely, asks the chained hero. So you're the heavenly god of war. You seem to have a lot of questions for me, he replies. We don't see each other often, so I'll let you ask any questions you want. I'll answer everything honestly. He reaches out to Shin-hyun. Was it fun? The hero asks. The heavenly god of war is at a loss. He doesn't understand what the other person means. Shinyang begins to explain. I was in a terrible world where I was completely alone and didn't know when I might die. We see the hero with bloodied hands and a Muram status window in front of him. I spent 140 years alone, not knowing what had happened to my family, and I'm sure you've been watching it all. This is Shinyang's first victim, a tramp he killed right after leaving the cave. Did you have fun watching me suffer for 140 years, you bastard? Shinyang's face is twisted with rage. The heavenly god of war in the form of Taeyang is silent, his face can be called expressionless. I hated it, he finally says. Disgusted, the hero looks at him in amazement. The heavenly god of war approaches Shinyang. I was so disgusted that I wanted to die. He's already an arm's length away. But I've been patiently waiting for you to reach a certain level, he says, looking straight into the hero's eyes. But what happened to you? You're still human. Yes, the heavenly god of war tries to find answers to his questions in Shinyang's eyes. Is it possible that you still have emotional ties to this world? What are you talking about? Shinyang asks in shock, looking at his companion. Then he starts laughing, a completely wild laugh. The heavenly god of war looks at the hero with bewilderment. No, seriously, I've been waiting for you to say something, Shinyang smiles. But you're talking nonsense. Enough, I'm sick of it. The hero strains his chained hands. Do I have any emotional attachments? Naturally, there is. He grabs several chains in his hand at once. I only want one thing. The one who made me live in despair. The heavenly god of war. Shinyang is straining all his muscles and sinews, trying to break the chains. I'll kill you, he shouts and swings his fist. It hits the target right in the belly of the heavenly god of war. He screams in sudden pain. The necklace's jades shatter. The heavenly god of war kneels in front of Shinyang. The hero hears his mental message in his head. Mark my words. Open the allegorical door and stop being human. Shinyang's arm is bleeding. You'll lose everything if you don't do this. The hero stands over the defeated enemy in which, most likely, there is no god left. It's just Park Tae-hoon's corpse. Jeon Junho and Lee Jahi call out to the hero. The girl looks at him in amazement. You killed Taehyung? She asks. Shinyang turns away and looks irritably into the distance. He grits his teeth and curses. The next day, okay, I'm listening, says the man in the expensive black shoes. This is Kim Chul-ho, and he's on the phone. I'll do as you say, he replies to someone. After hearing the news of Park Tae-hoong's death at the hands of the representatives of the Dawn Guild, he decided to give up. We see the secretary in an empty and dark meeting room. Papers are everywhere, and some chairs are overturned. Most of the top members of the Twilight Guild died, and the survivors decided to shut up. We see dark figures, a grinning corpse, and a bloody hand clutching a dagger. One person helped speed up the process of merging dawn and dusk. We see him indignantly swearing to God that none of this will work if he's not in the guild. This is Oh Dongwang, the senior secretary of the Dawn Guild. He pretended to be dead when he was attacked, and then he was quickly cured. This seems to have solved the problem of integrating the two guilds. Where did my tie go? Comes from the window of a skyscraper. Jeon Junho is getting ready to give a speech. Hello, dear Koreans, Dawn Guild from today. Why is the text so long? One of the assistants yells that we need to hurry because the press conference starts in 10 minutes. The second one asks the guild leader not to move. Shinyang and Lee Jahi are sitting across from each other in the next office, and they can hear the sounds described above. Jeon Junho, in particular, complains that the tie is tied too tightly. He coughs and calls for help. I have some kind of deja vu, says the hero, taking a sip of tea. What is this Junshin Yinjin? He asks, eyeing his drink. You didn't like it? No, Junshin Yinjin is always great. Okay, what are we going to do now? Shinyang asks Jahi. A girl with a full cup of tea in her hand begins to outline the current situation. The public is presented with an idyllic picture of the merger of two guilds by mutual agreement. But there are also pitfalls, so they decided to hide everything, even though people can guess everything, the hero asks. And they have another way out? Jahi answers with a question. But I'm still very disappointed, the girl says, raising her cup of tea to her lips again. I never imagined that Park Tae-hoong's life would end so ridiculously. We see Shinyang standing over the enemy's bloodied corpse. The hero does not respond to this phrase. He's lost in thought. Park Tae-hoon, a heavenly warrior. When I try to open the door of Mount Wuhua, is my condition already an allegorical dividing line? Will I lose everything if I don't stop being human? Shinyang remembers the face of the heavenly god of war during their last meeting. I'm just a scared little mouse, Shinyang thinks. How dare you threaten me? I won't let them get away next time. The hero drains the rest of his tea in one gulp, and LM Jahi notices that something is wrong with him. What's going on with you? She asks. Is there something you don't like? Sorry, I was just thinking, the hero replies. What a dreamer you are, the girl tells him. If you're done with this case, why don't you take a look at this? Shinyang sees a strange iron box with locks and glowing hieroglyphs in front of him. When asked what it is, Jahi says that it is a secret safe that was found in the office of the head of the Twilight Guild. Perhaps it is protected by sorcery, and it is not physically possible to open it. The hero scratches his chin, looking thoughtfully at this object. I don't usually touch other people's things, he says, but for the loss of values, the one who lost them is responsible. He stretches out his hand and white energy begins to flow out of it. There is some movement inside the safe, something is spinning and shifting. Finally, the locking wheel itself makes half a turn. How did you do that? Asks Jahi in shock as the safe door opens. It was easy, Shinyang says. It looked like Gao Ling had hit him earlier. He takes a folder out of the safe. It seems that she was very valuable to them, the hero suggests. Opening the folder, he is surprised to see that it contains only one piece of paper. Let me see it, Jahi says, and snatches the folder away from him. Shinyang looks at the girl in surprise. I didn't have time to read a single word, he complains. Jahi, who is reading the text, is surprised. It's a secret agreement between the Chinjo Guild and Park Tae-hoon, she says thoughtfully. It says here that as a result of cooperation, some North Korean dungeon was supposed to become the property of the Chinjo Guild. But this isn't even Twilight territory, the hero says in surprise. Shinyang gets a call and answers it. This is squad leader Kim Keel. Jahi, meanwhile, continues to read the document. Kim Keel informs the hero that his team has checked the cave and the people who attacked Shinyang are currently being held up. Inside the dungeon, there was complete chaos, as if a bomb had exploded there. The hero recalls that he warned about this. There's something else, the other person tells him. I think you should come here. Squad leader Cha Yun-seol is incredibly annoyed. We see that two young men are standing next to the girl, trying to calm her down, and she is desperately swearing at Shinyang, who once again left her. You can hear that? Right. And I'm not lying if I say that she's been in this state for about 5 hours. They got me, the hero says and ends the phone conversation. Jahi calls him and tells him that the document says something about the Chinjo Guild. She hands him the folder. This is, of course, non-specific information, she says, but in addition to Gao Lin, who was dealt with by Shinyang, 4 other people returned from Murim. The hero happily reads the text of the document. It's quite interesting personal data, he says. Each of them has reached at least level 50. That's why the guild is called Chinjo. So you're telling me these guys are The hero asks. The probability of this is very high, the answer follows. Okay, Shinyang says, getting up from the couch. The next goal seems clear. I have to find out what the Chinjo Guild is like. Also, who is Admiral Yidok? In front of us is a dark room with bright light shining through the windows. In Murim, it is considered natural to absorb the weak side from the strong side. We see an imposing white-haired character with earrings and a stylish hairstyle, who is sitting on a majestic chair. Next to him is a young man who looks like a secretary. So the Dawn and Dusk guilds are still in the process of merging. And this was Dawn's idea. That's exactly what the boss's assistant says. Any news from Gao Ling? The white-haired man asks. 36 hours have passed since the last contact. So they were both defeated. The blonde rubs his chin thoughtfully. Park Tae-young's unwarranted self-confidence is one thing, but Gao Lin's collapse was very unexpected for me. Here is a dead Chinese man with 3 henchmen. All 10 fighters who faced the Super Peak Master stopped communicating. Park Tae-hoon assumed that they were all already dead. So I can assume, says the white-haired man, that Cha Shinyang's level is more than 75. That means he's stronger than me, with my level 68. It's funny, he says, smiling. The secretary looks at him blankly. Keep following Cha Shinyang further, the blonde man sitting in his chair orders. Avoid direct contact and proceed cautiously, gradually and methodically. The secretary confirms that he has understood and bows. It doesn't matter who has what level, says the blonde. For that matter, winning or losing isn't determined by this parameter at all. This person is calm and even smiling. The Tamna Guild is headquartered in Waljong-rai, Chetu Island. In front of us is a window with a view of the boundless blue ocean. Appa, listen to me carefully, says Yun-seol, who is here. If you ever disappear like this again, I'll kill you first and then myself. Do you understand? She knocks her brother on the head with her fist. Sorry, it won't happen again, the hero replies. Or at least tell me where you're going, she adds. Kim Keel and Kim Hajun smile cheerfully. The younger one with pink hair asks Yun-seol to calm down, but this only provokes her to a new batch of selected curses. Shin-hyun, meanwhile, looks pleased. It's a good thing I'm back on Checha, he thinks. Public opinion, agitated by the merger of the two guilds, will be appeased by Dawn's public actions. We see a television picture of Jeon Junho speaking at a microphone, announcing the end of duopoly. Lee Jahi will be responsible for tracking the activities of the Heavenly Creation Guild, which was previously called the Heavenly God Guild. There is a risk that its members will go underground if left unattended. So we're going to be collecting information in secret, right? It's clear from Lee Jahi's eyes that she's going to put in her best effort for this. I'm grateful that she's doing this for me, the hero thinks. But I'm still worried about something. I do not know where to start hunting them. Shinyang, who is sitting next to his sister, scratches his head thoughtfully. Suddenly, one of the people present turns to him. This is Kim Hajun. He bows and apologizes for what happened to the hero on the island. What happened to you that day was entirely my fault, he says. I didn't think there would be a traitor in the guild union of Chetu Island. I am very sorry for putting you in such danger, and I do not know how we can repay you for all the trouble we have caused you. Brother and sister Cha carefully look at the man who is kneeling in front of them. Shinyang interrupts him. To be honest, I thought at one point that the entire Chetu Guild Union had betrayed us, he says. Of course not, Kim Hajun shouts indignantly. To be honest, these doubts are still not completely dispelled, the hero continues. He's sitting on the couch with his arms crossed. His sister calls out to him, knowing that Shinyang's words might offend him. But this is not a reason for you to consider me your enemy, the hero finishes his thought. Kim Keel looks at him with wide eyes. Okay, relax, it's alright, Shinyang says with a smile, which causes the interlocutors to be very happy. What a relief, uncle. Justice always prevails, nephew. In response, the hero says, and the faces of the people from Tamna again appear alarmed. The merger that the Dawn Guild launches will also affect the Chetu Island Guild Union, he says, crossing his legs. Everyone in the office looks at Shinyang in amazement. Earlier, you said that you don't want to get involved in the fight between the Dawn and Dusk guilds. But this fight is already over, the hero declares in a confident tone. I've already talked to Dawn about it. Besides, I don't think it's possible to control all the dungeons on Chetu Island with just the local guilds. Kim Hajun examines the papers handed to him and says that he sees the offer as a departure from the established system. It's hard for him to give a definitive answer right now, but to be honest, his hands are shaking as he holds the folder of papers. I don't think we can get better conditions, he says. Thank you, head of Cha, he exclaims, and bows all the way to the floor again. If we are all on friendly terms with the Dawn, says the hero, then I think we can forget about the misunderstanding that was between us. If Chetu Island is under my influence, Shinyang thinks to himself, it will be easier to keep an eye on the Sky Creature Guild. Even if there are other traitors here. Squad leader Kim Keel. Yes, there was only one dungeon left that I had to deal with, wasn't there? Kim Hajun looks at the papers with the happiest expression. That's right, Keel answers the question. One high danger dungeon remained near Hallison. Then let's clean it up quickly and without delay, Shinyang suggests. Right now, Yunseol asks. From the look on the hero's face, it's clear that this is exactly what he wants. Because then I'll be very busy, he says. In front of us is a bright sunlit forest. So, everyone's here, right? Several fighters are standing in front of Shinyang. A squad with only one warrior, a shield bearer, and a priest, says the hero. This is an unusual combination. Is there any reason why we don't take wizards and archers? Don't tell me it's a cave again. No, it's not a cave, Kim Hajun tells him, who looks very tense. But in this dungeon, ranged attacks based on good eyesight are useless. The hero is waiting for the report to continue. Hallison's dungeon has the highest difficulty level on the island of Chetu, says Kim Hajun. And his biggest problem is the fog. It makes it very difficult to know where the squad members are, even if they are very close. The most dangerous thing there is a monster called Miss Leopard. We see terrible predatory eyes somewhere in the middle of the fog. Shinyang listens carefully to the speaker. He says that these monsters seem to dissolve in the fog. With normal physical attacks, it is very difficult to hit them. It is much more effective to use work on squares, for example, the skills of sacred attributes of priests that use magical powers. And one more thing, the speaker says. The hero looks at him questioningly. These monsters also have a monstrous attack power. We see a shield that has been left with deep marks from the leopard's claws. These creatures, like skilled assassins, appear unexpectedly and strike blows that you never expect. Because of this, our unit suffered heavy defeats several times. A large drop of sweat rolls down the speaker's face. Okay, that's enough, you're taking too long, Shinyang interrupts. The guy's face is contorted with furious anger. He doesn't believe what he just heard. Calm down, I've got a rough idea of what you mean, says the hero. All this means that you need to kill them with one skill or another, right? Yes, it is, but still. The speaker is still very angry. He sees Shinyang scratching the back of his head, not paying much attention to his words. In general, everything is clear to me, Shinyang declares and takes a step forward. The briefing is over, and now I will try to kill as many monsters as I can. He beams at the speaker. He almost cries, which makes the rest of the squad laugh. The stronger a person is, the more tactless they are, right? It looks like he's about to burst into tears. Yes, that's the charm of such people, Kim Hajun, who is standing next to him, tells him. Before us is a portal leading to the dungeon. Of course, I was warned, but who would have thought that it would look like this? You can't see an inch here, he realizes. Someone calls out to Shinyang from behind, and he turns at the voice. There you are. A squad member comes out of the fog and says happily, I'm glad I found you right away. Here, near the entrance to the dungeon, the view is still relatively good, says Kim Hajun. But if we go a little further, the forest will appear and it will be easy to lose a squad member there. So what we're going to do is, go ahead and set it on fire, he commands, and a small yellow ball appears in the hand of one of the fighters, emitting energy. With the light skill, it's much safer to move around here, says Hajun. Shinyang turns to the guild leader, who makes it clear that he is willing to listen. This is probably basic information, the hero says, but I'll ask anyway. The area near the dungeon entrance is an absolute safety zone, right? Naturally, Hajun answers. Never before in history have there been reports of monsters appearing near the dungeon entrance. We see soldiers walking in the fog, one with a spear and the other with a shield. After a moment, only the second one remains, with his hair cut almost bald. He feels something is wrong. What's going on? The fighter says, and starts looking around. Where did everyone go? He asks, seeing no one around. It's very strange. Hey, stop messing with me. Get out. I can't see anything because of the fog. Then why are the monsters attacking us? Asks hero Kim Hajun. It was as if they were waiting for us here. We see that the shorn fighter is attacked by a misty leopard, which has terrible red eyes. The beast's claws reach out to the victim. We see someone's eyes that have only whites in them. Shinyang, who has a white energy sphere in his hand, rushes to the aid of his ally. He holds out his hand and grabs the face of the owner of strange eyes. An inscription appears, perfect shot. Shinyang's hand reaches out to someone. Shinyang's companions can't believe what's happening. The hero who has just landed a punch explains to them that this is exactly what he expected. When monsters attack, their bodies become visible. It becomes clear that the completely white eyes belong to the misty leopards. Shinyang notices something and turns around. Why are monsters advancing from the dungeon entrance? The whole squad is fighting leopards. Kim Hajun, their commander, orders them to calm down, stand in a battle formation and attack. Something slams into the ground next to the shield. Where the hell did the priest go? He shouts. The hero looks at his hand in disbelief. A white, sparkling sphere appears in his palm. Her energy is flying into the monsters, and it hits them. Ghostly monsters do not like this effect. They grin in pain. There is a strong explosion, the cloud of which mixes with the fog. We see Shinhon's worried face. Is everything alright? He asks, standing over the red pebbles that have fallen from the destroyed monsters. I've scanned the area with magic and I don't see any monsters here, he says. We need to take this opportunity to regroup. Squad members express their admiration for the squad leader. How could he have done it in such a short time? Kim Hajun thinks, looking at his ally in disbelief. Everyone here? Asks Shinhyun, who is surrounded by the squad members. The energy coming from you tells me that everyone is alive and well. It's a good thing we're on the same side, says one of the squad members. I didn't really understand the situation, and what he did was amazing, Hajun thinks. If it wasn't for him, we would have had a very difficult time. Shinyang is pleased with how his allies reacted to his exploits. It's a good thing my indiscretion didn't cost anyone their lives, Hajun thinks. Suddenly, he hears Shinyang calling out to him. Can we discuss something? He asks. Yes, of course, the islander replies. You were previously attacked at the entrance to the dungeon. The hero is interested. No, it was the first time. Perhaps this is due to the fact that we don't clear dungeons regularly, says Hajun. As a result, the number of monsters grows, and they are forced to come here. Shinyang reflects on what he's heard. In any case, we'll find out what's going on here as we go further. Still the same impenetrable fog, inside which ghostly leopards are grinning. The hero fights them with the help of streams of his white energy. His squad members watch in surprise as Shinyang hits one ghost leopard after another, knocking out red crystals. The girl who is standing next to Kim Hajun asks if it's normal for the hero to continuously attack monsters for 3 hours. Does he have endless reserves of magical power? The guild leader doesn't know what to say. I told him to pause from time to time, but he didn't seem to hear me. The hero tirelessly destroys fog leopards. At one point, he turns to his companions and asks them if they have noticed any changes. For example, in the frequency of attacks, the level of monsters, or something else. The allies can't say anything intelligible, and they're still standing there with their mouths hanging open. The girl finally comes to her senses and reports that monsters are appearing more often than before. But otherwise, nothing seems to have changed. It seems to me, says Hajun, that they have moved to the safe zone because of the increase in their numbers. But he wouldn't draw any conclusions. Shinyang says he scanned the area and found a suspicious location 4.5 kilometers away. The guild leader asks incredulously. It seems to him that the search magic is not able to work properly at this distance. It's best if we go there and check out what's going on, Shinyang replies. If this dungeon is really the way I see it now, you'll need to further increase its nominal danger level. An hour later, Kim Hajun looks at the scene in front of him in shock. Is it fog? He asks, looking at the impenetrable and impossibly high white wall that has grown up in front of the squad. It even makes him laugh. I think we can call it the Great White Barrier, he says, smiling. Yes, but there's something even more interesting inside, Shinyang tells him. Hajun, throw the dagger at the white barrier, he says. The guild leader reaches under his cloak and pulls out the weapon he was asked for. Throw it over there with all your strength, the hero points with his finger exactly where the dagger should go. Hajun does what he was asked to do. The dagger is flying, and it hits someone right in the eye. The squad members look on in shock at this sniper throw. This is exactly what I expected, says Shinhyun, smiling. He orders everyone to prepare for battle. Kim Hajun can't shake the shock, cold sweat pouring down his face. He is approaching, the hero says, and looks to where he is waiting for the threat. High above the heads of the fighters, a strange crack appears in the fog. A second later, the face of a giant leopard comes out of it, with only one eye glowing. The second one, presumably, was stabbed out with Kim Hajun's dagger. We see the explanation, Giant Mist Reaper. The shield bearer, towards whom this monster is rushing, crouches in horror. Why did he attack me in particular, he thinks, holding the enemy back with his shield. Kim Hajun swings his sword wide, and deals a successful blow to the monster that appears. Don't be afraid, he shouts. It's big, but not dangerous. We can easily defeat him if we're a team. His charges, hearing these words, are filled with determination. Take it, one of the fighters shouts, and punches the monster between the shoulder blades while being held back by the shield. He's smart, Shinyang thinks. The head of the guild, after all. They don't seem to need my help. Maybe I should go further. He looks thoughtfully at the impenetrable fog. Another one. You two take care of it. Hajun confidently guides the actions of his fighters. The hero carefully moves deeper into the dungeon. I immediately suspected, he thinks, that there would be giant monsters of several kinds here. This is the second one after Buchan's dungeon. Perhaps there is some kind of portal that giant monsters can enter through. The hero looks thoughtfully into the distance. Behind him, a pair of predatory eyes light up. It is clear that this is one of the local monsters. He sneaks up close to the hero, but he gets a glowing fist right in the nose. I've heard that there can't be more than 2 types of monsters in a single dungeon, Shinyang thinks. If Jahi found out about this, she would be shocked. The hero slowly moves away from the monster, which is lying on the ground and died from that very blow to the nose. Shinyang notices something behind him and turns his head in that direction. It's a gap in space, he thinks, noticing an unusual crack in front of him. The hero takes a closer look at her. No, this is something else, he realizes. The crack increases in size. I can't touch it. It's like a hologram. We can see that Shinhan's hand doesn't go through the white gap. I don't understand anything, he thinks. Can it only be seen with the naked eye? The hero opens the status window. We see 2 at once, and the yellow Murim and the blue earth. This is an unknown phenomenon that permeates all substances, says the hero. Of course, I knew that this was a very unusual phenomenon. He holds out his fist, and it starts to shake. Here comes our incredible guild leader, comes from behind Shinhyun. This is Kim Hajun. He reports that there aren't any giant monsters left in the area. Do you see this crack too? The hero asks him. Hajun answers with bewilderment that he can't see anything. The hero smiles. So only he could see her. The heavenly god of war, he thinks. It has to be him. What are you saying? Hajun asks him.